sat in your lap in months, and even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm going to keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, everyone. Let's all stop what we're doing right now and take a moment. That felt good, huh? Just like that, we had a nice, special sort of moment together. Of course, they don't all need to be quiet moments to be special. They could be loud moments, goofy moments, sporty moments, dorky moments, moments where we talk or walk or just hang out. It doesn't really matter. They all count. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. Sounds like somebody agrees. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Today, call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Music is a bridge between the material and the spiritual. My name is Harvey Lauer, and I'm 82. As a blind person, you have to be aware that nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. You really have to try things. My folks got me a little radio in 1940, and that was the best Christmas present I ever got. When I was 11 years old is when I started to play music, play the piano, and then the accordion, and then the cello. My wife, who was also blind, was a good cook. When she died, that's when I started Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
It's Meals on Wheels. 1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Yeah, okay. Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There is only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more.
Get a rest!
No!
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up!
Remember in the old days, they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen?
Play like absolute just garbage.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Yay!
Man. Can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks and Speedy Beatty.
You're not even a has-been. You're a never was. You're a never was.
January 3rd, ladies and gentlemen. It is a new year. 2024. Happy New Year from the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks. My co-host, Speedy Petey. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out our local listings by going to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Peter, what is up? Happy New Year to you. How are your family?
Yes, Happy New Year.
How are your family? How are our family?
Well, I can't attest to everybody's family, but my family definitely enjoyed their New Year's. It was stressful for my mom. She had to do a lot of, she was prepping a lot of wings. She made a lot of different wing flavors.
No cookies?
No, we did cookies on Christmas. We didn't do it this time around for New Year's, but we did a lot of appetizer foods.
Homemade ice cream. Did you ever do that before?
We've done it before, not in a while.
Are you good at that?
I don't.
Are you good at anything?
I don't.
Are you good at making anything?
I don't remember if I was.
How about tuna fish? You like making tuna?
No, that's my brother Dylan. He likes that a lot. And my dad.
What does he put in it? He has like pepper, carrots. What does he like to put in?
Celery.
That's it? Celery?
Yeah, that's really
nothing else. No mayo.
Well, yeah, mayo is default.
Well, hold on one second. Some people don't put mayo in. It's fattening.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to put some weight on. You need to put some weight on. You weigh a ton.
I would say.
I mean, you actually don't weigh a ton.
Well, yeah, I would say that's the more unique approach if you don't put mayo in a tuna fish.
Approach.
Yeah, I would say the majority of tuna fish recipes have.
What would be unique if you didn't put mayo in it?
You could probably do ranch.
How about cottage cheese?
Similar.
Would you put cottage cheese?
I suppose there's people that have tried that.
Oh, stop it. Nobody puts cottage cheese.
It's up to them. I don't know.
In tuna fish.
Probably not, but
I mean, that would be good for you. I think you like to do different things, right? You like to dip your wings
care that much
in different sauces.
Yeah, that's different than tuna.
What do you mean it's different than tuna? Do you like tuna?
It's okay.
Yeah, but that's not, that's not the question here. Do you like tuna or do you not?
It's fine. It's a decent.
What is your favorite meal, Speedy?
My favorite meal. Out of
Yes.
anything.
Oh, are you thinking now? Is this going to be like
Yeah.
a TikTok? We don't
No,
stop.
I don't use TikTok.
Oh,
I'm not
no,
gonna go
obviously. I couldn't see you dancing. I mean, your Rockette kicks would scare the hell out of people.
Yeah, that's why I don't use TikTok and make myself look like a fool.
Well, hey, listen, I like to look like a fool.
I know, because you're part of the shameless 5%.
So you still haven't told us what your favorite food is. Your favorite meal. What does your mom like to cook you? Have you ever had goat?
Enchiladas.
Enchiladas. Do you like goat?
Never had goat meat.
You've never had goat
I've had
meat?
goat cheese. It's good. I've
Oh,
never
you
had
like
goat
goat
meat.
cheese,
I've never
okay.
had goat meat.
How about goat balls?
Oh my god!
I'm just asking. You had goat before. You never had goat, but you had goat cheese, so maybe goat balls.
And now we're all getting.
How about duck? Have you ever had duck
I have
before?
not had duck, but we're probably willing to try that possibly next Thanksgiving.
Oh, so
have discussed that.
Why Thanksgiving? Why do you have to wait until Thanksgiving? Oh, you got to go to a Chinese buffet or Chinese restaurant.
Well, yeah, I'm sure
You
they
can
have.
duck.
I'm sure they have.
Maybe you can have cat and dog too if you go to a
I'm sure
Chinese
they have
buffet.
before, because I know they like Chinese food a lot more. So I'm sure they have.
Have you ever had an insect to eat? Did you ever eat an insect?
By accident, yes.
Oh, really? You ate an insect? What kind of insect?
Some kind of bug, some kind of flying bug.
You don't know what you ate? You just
I
ate
didn't
it?
do it on purpose.
So did it just fly in your mouth and you're like,
Yes.
this is good?
No.
Well, so how did you do it?
I walked into it because it flew in my mouth. Yes.
Oh, so you walked into a
It was
bug.
probably a
Ladies
regular-
and gentlemen, Speedy Petey, a man with amazing ability. He likes to walk.
I don't think that's an impressive ability.
It is. It is. It very much is. I mean,
It's
seriously.
not Karate Kid with the chopsticks.
Wax on, wax off.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
like
not-
to
it's not-
wax on, wax off?
No, but it's not him with the chopsticks catching the bug. That's an expressive ability.
Well, hey, listen. I think you could do anything, Speedy. You've done a lot of different things in your lifetime. Why couldn't you do it with chopsticks?
I'm not good at gripping chopsticks as it is.
Well, you're not good at gripping much of anything, are you?
Not chopsticks.
How about grabbing things? Do you like to grab things?
That's a whole different tactic altogether.
No, it's not. It's part of the tactic. Anyways, we have a great show lined up for you guys for the new year in 2024 at 8:30. We'll be talking to the host of Just Jets podcast and Talking Jets show, Matt O'Leary. He is fantastic. If you've never ever seen him on YouTube, well, shame on you. This guy is as good as it gets when it comes to Jets football. He knows everything. He's one of the best when it comes to YouTube. At 9 o'clock, we'll be talking to former 49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, and Titans tight end Kevin Green. He played from 2014 to 2017, and it's not Kevin Green, the Hall of Famer. Speedy thought it was the Hall of Famer.
I did at the time.
But he passed away, and I said, Speedy, wait a second. Kevin Green is gone. I don't understand that. And he actually was a part of the Jets coaching staff a couple of years ago, the Todd Bowles coaching staff. So it didn't make any sense. So Speedy kind of threw me off when he told me Kevin Green was coming on the show. The Knicks acquire OG Anunoby from the Raptors for RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley and a second-round pick. I will say this. This, I believe, was a great trade for the New York Knicks. I didn't want to see RJ Barrett go, but he wanted to go home, and I know the Knicks were trying to accommodate him, and he's heading home to Toronto, and he played his first game the other day with Immanuel Quickley. The Knicks say they are still not done, and they have enough assets to acquire another significant player, and they are linked to Pascal Siakam and Mr. Murray. So, and Hawks, and I have him on my fantasy team, by the way. So that's going to be an interesting story moving forward till the trade deadline. Did the referees botch up the ending of the Lions and Cowboys game? I would say yes. We will get into it. Reports say there is tension tearing the Eagles locker room apart after losing to the Cardinals. And everybody wants to get rid of Kyler Murray. The Cardinals will most likely keep Kyler Murray and won't draft a quarterback. Thank God. I mean, how many times have we seen this before? They decide to part ways with a quarterback. Somebody goes somewhere else and he's successful. I love Kyler Murray. I think he's starting to get back to his normal self. Bears lock up the number one pick, but many fans and players give chants and obviously screaming for Justin Fields at the end of the game. We will get into that. Michigan and Washington will face off in the national championship. So why don't we get into it? And the referee controversy was everything. It was everything throughout the weekend. And honestly, Saturday night, nationally televised, and watching this only tells you that the NFL absolutely botched up a call. And And to me, it was significant. Referee controversy ruined the end of the Lions and Cowboys Saturday night matchup, robbing the Lions of taking a lead with 2-point conversion. The controversy came on which offensive lineman reported eligible. Lions left tackle Taylor Decker, who caught the pass, told the referee Brad Allen he reported eligible, but Allen still penalized the Lions, saying it was left guard Dan Skipper instead. There is also video proof that Decker told Allen that he was the one eligible, and Skipper went over there to say he wasn't eligible. Dan Campbell said he also told the referees in the pregame that he would consider calling offensive line pass plays and to be ready for the scenario to happen. That play would have given the Lions a 21-20 lead with 23 seconds remaining, and the Cowboys only having one timeout. Brad Allen's referee crew was also responsible for a bad missed call at the end of the Chiefs-Packers game, including a hit on Patrick Mahomes and a passing interference not called on the Packers. The NFL says that Allen's crew will do this week's Steelers and Ravens game, but will likely not do any of the playoff games. I don't know if the game was scripted. I know everybody's going to go out there and believe that this game was scripted. The NFL, I'm one of those guys, especially in the Super Bowl. I believe there were certain games that really stood out to me where I could say it was scripted. But to me, right now, when you look at this game and the situation and how it happened, you would honestly think that the referees gave this game away to the Cowboys. And I'm not saying Dak Prescott didn't have a good game. And Beef, shame on you if you thought he did. Because he outplayed Jared Goff. He absolutely outplayed Jared Goff. And the game was back and forth. It was such a great game. Everybody thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. The Cowboys usually score between 35 and 40 points at home. They dominate at home offensively. But this game was really a defensively sound game. And the Lions, a team that all season long has been explosive on both sides of the ball, running the ball and even defense. Their front seven has been explosive. Their secondary, there were a lot of questions going into this game against the Cowboys. And they showed up. They played very well. Now, they couldn't stop CeeDee Lamb. Who can? I mean, CeeDee Lamb had a 95-yard catch? I mean, he was explosive. He was the only player that was explosive for the Dallas Cowboys. Ferguson was good. Pollard in certain parts of the game, I would say in the fourth quarter, he ran the ball pretty well. But it was the CeeDee Lamb show. It was Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Micah Parsons finally woke up in this game. For everybody and all the Cowboy fans that think he's the best defensive lineman in all of football, the last 3 weeks, he hasn't really shown up. This past week, he showed up. So did Lawrence, finally. This defensive line actually played well against a very good offensive line with the Lions. The Lions, I believe, the second best offensive line in football, right behind the Eagles. But who knows what's going on with the Eagles in their locker room and what's going on with the offense and defensive side of the ball. But we'll get into that a little bit later. You watch this game and you wonder, obviously, was Jimmy Johnson night. Halftime, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin. Everybody was on the field enjoying Jimmy Johnson getting inducted to the Cowboys Hall of Fame. Finally, because, I don't know, Jerry Jones pulled up his pants and realized that Jimmy Johnson belongs there. I think that when you watch these kind of games, and honestly, I understand that the Cowboys have a ton of fans around the country. They do. They have a ton of fans. And friends, by the way. Jimmy Johnson does, and so does Jerry Jones. And I don't know how they play that they're friends. They couldn't stand each other a couple of months ago. Now all of a sudden, they're the lovers. What we saw on national television at the end of the game was terrible. It was terrible. And that's what I want to see from my coach, Robert Saleh. Watching Dan Campbell dance, his face turned red and purple. He was dancing on the sidelines, screaming at the referees. You saw Skipper running around, screaming at the referees. You saw Decker screaming at the referees. You saw the whole offensive line screaming at the referees. We called it. We told you that we were going to run this play. We were going to make sure that we were going to report and be eligible on the 2-point conversion. And what happens? It was botched up. And I don't want to hear from the referees. How could you botch up? Who told you what? He came up to you. Do you not know how to read a number? Do you not know how to read a name on the back of a jersey? Are you that dumb? You guys, half of these referees in the NFL are lawyers. They own their own firms. They're doctors. You think a lawyer's going to forget, hey, this is a criminal case. It's not a corporate case. And I'm going to go out there and just say, hey, you know what? You win or lose. You go to jail. Who cares? This is ridiculous. And the NFL, no explanation. Oh, I'm sorry. None of these guys are going to be a part of the playoff run. None of these guys are going to be a part of the playoffs. That's not enough. That's embarrassing. And you sit back and you wonder if the NFL or this happens in a playoff game to any team in the NFL in a game that's so important, is this going to cost a team a playoff run? Or would this cost a team a chance to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, and you definitely see referee bias. We've talked about this in the past, too. And the Lions have been really scrutinized badly with that kind of thing, too. Let's go back to the Packers game. Aaron Rodgers threw the Hail Mary in against the Lions. Like, that was a face mask that wasn't called there. There was a bad one against the Seahawks. There was a bad one against the Falcons. There was a 10-second runoff. The Lions, like you were saying about the Jets, like, they never get those kinds of calls. And Dallas, I know the Beef likes to complain, Dallas doesn't get calls either. The whole Des Bryant controversy. There's a difference. Yeah, that sounds like an actual protection.
Prescott, you stink. I hope you break your leg.
Well, if you claim that Dak Prescott stinks, Beef, go watch the 92-yard touchdown again. That was all him trying to get out of the end zone to get a safety. That was nearly a safety on the Lions. And Dak Prescott extended the play and threw a bomb to CeeDee Lamb.
What's so funny? You see the Cowboys play the Lions, and I remember the Beef came out and said that, hey, Ezekiel Elliott at one point could run and it was as dominant as Barry Sanders. And if he ran behind that same offensive line Barry Sanders was running for the Lions in the 90s, he would have the same numbers. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
How could you sit here and watch this game and know that the Lions did not get screwed? Mm-hmm. They had everything. They were going to win the game. They actually did win the game. And then all of a sudden, you see a flag come out. You're wondering what the flag was all about. And then you see the Cowboys, and you see Jerry Jones up there in a skybox. He's sitting there. He's jumping for joy because he knew that the NFL and the referees screwed the Lions because of that particular play. It was absolutely embarrassing. The NFL should be ashamed of themselves. And we've seen this before. Mm-hmm. If you remember, the Saints and the Rams. And two of these referees were a part of that game. Two of them were a part of that game, which screwed the Saints on going to the Super Bowl. Who knows? The Saints possibly win the Super Bowl against the Patriots in that game because, hey, the Patriots barely scored, and neither did the Rams. One of the greatest offensive teams that year, and one of the greatest offensive teams we have seen in the last 10 years, goes to the Super Bowl and only puts up what? How many points? 10 or something like that?
3. The Patriots only put up 10.
There you go. It was 10-3. It was probably the worst watched Super Bowl game we've ever seen. As the NFL is trying to build more offense, you got to watch. You had the opportunity to watch arguably one of the most boring football games you ever seen.
And that's, again, we go back to like what kind of national brand the NFL wants to build. The Lions, yes, they're this fun young breakthrough team. They're the great underdog story for a city that hasn't won a playoff game since the 90s. They've only won one playoff game in their entire franchise history in the Super Bowl era. So you want to have a team like that to be able to brand on, but are you going to really surpass, the Dallas Cowboys? I'm sure the NFL would love to see the Dallas Cowboys be the 2 seed, especially now that the Eagles lost to the Arizona Cardinals.
They are going to be the 2 seed.
Yeah, it looks that way, unless they somehow screw it up against Washington. But
And
still.
it's amazing what's going on with the Eagles. The Eagles are completely falling apart. They have completely fallen apart. And it didn't matter that the Cowboys lost an important game the week before. No, it didn't, because the Eagles have lost consecutive games back and forth and back and forth. This is a team that added a guy like Shaq Leonard, an all-pro player. You added Bayard, who one of the best safeties in the league a couple of years ago. You added all these talented defensive players, and you still can't buy a win. You can't find a way to win. And everybody wants to blame Jalen Hurts. It's not Jalen Hurts' fault. They haven't run the ball very, very well the last couple of weeks. And A.J. Brown, who everybody likes to point their fingers because the last 2 weeks he hasn't really broken out what he's done all season long, it's A.J. Brown's fault. A.J. Brown has been one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league. And Devontae Smith, he could be out a significant amount of time. So, I mean, you're going into the playoffs. You're not 100% healthy. You don't even know what this team is all about. This defense, which everybody was going to believe was going to be as explosive as it was last year, going all the way to the Super Bowl, adding these pieces and getting healthy, they've been worse. And by the way, they got younger in the offseason. They added Carter. They had all these guys. And all these youngsters have not really taken them to that next level. This is a huge problem for the Eagles. And the Cowboys are licking their lips because now they have a chance, if they win on Sunday, to win the division.
Now, going back to the referee controversy, too, there's also 2 different other elements of video proof, too. There's video proof of what you were saying about Dan Campbell actually going to the referees and telling them, we're going to go run this trick play if we need to on a 2-point conversion. He also did mention it again in the first quarter of that game. There's also proof of Jared Goff telling Taylor Decker in the huddle, go report as eligible. You're the tackle eligible guy, not Dan Skipper. And then there's video proof of that to the referees. Now, there's this whole controversy of, okay, Dan Campbell wanted to do both of them as eligible, so Dallas didn't know which one it was, which is creative on his part, too. He should not be penalized for that kind of thing. And that's what the referees are going to confuse it as. And like you were saying, in the simplest terms, know what guys' numbers are. I mean, seriously, it's the first thing you're taught.
How do you not see the number? I mean, and they're 2 different size guys. I mean, one's bigger than the other. How do you not notice that? And that, to me, tells me one thing. The NFL has a bunch of idiots as referees. That's what they have. And to me, when you look at the situation for what it was, the Cowboys were handed the game. The Lions could be right now 12-4, and they have a chance to win the conference.
Right.
They could be going in on the final week of the season. If they win out and San Francisco loses, they could win the conference and have the number 1 seed and be home and have home field advantage all playoff long, all the way to the Super Bowl.
And even so, let's say they play against Dallas again. They win their first playoff game against the Rams or the Seahawks or whoever it might be, or whatever other team, and they go to the next round. Like they should have to be, could be the home team. They should have been able to be the home team if they were able to win their last game of the season against the Vikings too. So if they play Dallas in the playoffs again, or if they were to play the Eagles hypothetically, like why they're now robbed of a home game against a good opponent. Like even if they didn't get the home field advantage as the 1 seed, they should at least have been allowed the opportunity to be able to play the 2. If they botched their opportunity the last week of the season against the Vikings and they lost it, that's on them, fine. But the NFL screwing them out of that seeding and losing a home game possibly in the playoffs for a team that's inexperienced, a team that has a great storyline on them too, it's not something that looks good for the NFL either. Dallas and the Eagles have played a bunch of home playoff games.
It is going to be very difficult if the Lions and the Cowboys meet up in the playoffs for the Cowboys to knock them off. It's very hard for a top team to knock off another top team back-to-back times. And it's been known that it's only happened a couple of times in the last 10 years. So it's not easy. And that's the problem right now. The Cowboys probably would have been better off losing that game, because if they do meet the Lions in the playoffs, I already believe the Lions have the advantage. And by the way, Dan Campbell will have this marked. He will have the Cowboy star marked on the board if they meet the Cowboys in the playoffs.
And again, you also look at the strategy that Dan Campbell's been able to implement too. His creativity should not be scrutinized for what the referees are trying to do. And it doesn't seem like that happens with a lot of other teams that also do this tackle eligible stuff. This is not the first instance of that kind of thing. I know the Ravens were complaining about it with the Patriots a couple of years ago too in the playoffs, and John Harbaugh was having beef. Meanwhile, the Ravens, after that, started doing it all the time too. So it's part of the rule book. Learn the rule book for one. And number two, really just stop showing this referee bias. Like, the Lions are not one of these teams that should be like penalized as much as they have been for the last really 8 years. And
horrible.
It just shows obvious referee bias for certain teams. And it really isn't as much quarterback dependent as people think, because I still see the Packers, even with Aaron Rodgers gone now, still getting calls. The Patriots with Tom Brady gone now, still getting calls. Why aren't the Lions, this new team, this new fun young team, getting calls?
The Lions made a lot of mistakes too. Early in the game, Laporta made a couple of, bad mistakes. And Laporta has been a good blocker all season long. He missed a couple of blocks. He dropped the ball a couple of times. And it looked like the Cowboys were going to dominate the game all the way into the second half. And then the Lions started to pick up some steam. And then you saw what the Lions could do. Their defense started getting to Dak Prescott. This offensive line, the Cowboys' offensive line is very weak in certain aspects of their game. They just lost Smith for the season. They're weak in certain aspects of their offensive line. So they're going into the playoffs. They're not 100%. Zach Martin hasn't been 100% all season long. So you're looking going into the playoffs that one of the most important parts of your offense is weak. And now you're going to depend on Dak Prescott to move inside and out of the pocket and make plays and actually be able to run the ball, which, by the way, Pollard has not looked good week in and week out. And they're not getting enough running in their running game to help them in their throwing game. CeeDee Lamb is everything to their throwing game. If CeeDee Lamb gets knocked out, or CeeDee Lamb gets a concussion, or hurts himself in any of the rest of the games, the final game of the season if he does play, or any of the games early into the playoffs, and they go all the way to the NFC title game, or they go into the semis, the divisional series, there's a good chance. There is a good chance the Cowboys get knocked out.
Yeah, look at the Bills game, too. Like, CeeDee Lamb got pretty much contained for that whole game besides the first quarter, and the Cowboys couldn't really do much of anything on offense. Snug also says, yes, but they lost the play when they were on a 2-point play. The second time, they could have just kicked the extra point.
Yep.
Yes, but again, that's also not interdependent to how the refs screwed it up. Like, just because they had to take a penalty, yes, they could have kicked the extra point. That has nothing to do with the referees botching a very simple thing of knowing which player reported eligible. There is video proof of Taylor Decker saying, I am eligible, and Dan Skipper walking down there saying, I am not eligible. Decker is the eligible guy. And at least your second comment, Snug, if you want to run a complicated play to confuse the defense, you may also confuse the refs. There's a certain amount of risk. That doesn't mean it's their fault, though, and they should be scrutinized for it. The referees botched the most simple thing you learn when you become a referee.
All right, who do we have on the phone?
We got Jeff.
Jeff, what's up, bud?
This couldn't have happened to a better team than the Cowboys. It just couldn't have.
Why is that?
Well, the Cowboys got the benefits. So I don't know why you're saying it like that, Jeff.
Right. No. They got the benefit of it, which is great. So now these motherfuckers can shut up. I am tired of hearing from these people that, oh, nothing ever goes our way and they're out to get us. No, they're not. They handed you a victory because you suck. So we feel bad. So here's a win. Now shut the fuck up.
Well, they pissed off Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell didn't even want to speak to the press at the end of the game. Every single one of the players had a lot to say about it. Well, I'm sorry?
Well, he can't do anything about it because then he gets fined.
No question. But again, Dan Campbell doesn't care about the money. We've seen Dan Campbell go up after the game and speak his mind. He is not afraid. Something that Robert Saleh should be doing after the Jet games, after what the debacle of games the Jets have thrown out there. At least Dan Campbell actually goes out there and shows enthusiasm. You don't see that with Robert Saleh. You don't see that with Mike McCarthy.
Robert Saleh is a great coach, coaching the greatest franchise in the league.
All right, stop. Stop with this. Stop with this.
No, he's great. He's great. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that the Cowboys got the benefit of a call, and it gave them the game, a game they would have lost, no doubt. There was 30 seconds left.
There's 23 seconds, and Dallas
They were not winning
timeout.
that game. They were not winning that game.
Right, and they weren't getting down the field and kicking a field goal or doing it. It wasn't going to happen. So all of these Cowboy fans can cry in their bucket of coleslaw, come playoffs. Oh, we lost again. Yeah, the league handed you a win. They gave you another win because you're such crybabies that they felt bad for you.
Well, Also, I think that the league loves the Cowboys, and they want to see the Cowboys go as far as they can because of the fan base, and it's going to bring in ratings. And I don't know. Again, I don't believe this game was scripted, but I think it really was a botched up referee call. And again, the referees, and I understand the NFL comes out, and we've heard Roger Goodell come out and say that they are not going to be reffing in any of the playoff games. But that doesn't help the situation because now, like I said, and even Speedy said, that if the Lions play the Cowboys in the playoffs, the Cowboys have the home game.
It won't matter. It won't matter. They'll go back there and beat them again. And I said again because they beat them the first time, and they'll beat them again.
Well, they should have the opportunity to get a home game too. I agree with you, Jeff. Dallas has not been the world-class home field advantage in the playoffs. I know they're 8-0 at home during the regular season, but we've seen them be the 1 and 2 seeds a lot in the playoffs and lose at home. So to the Giants, they lost to the Packers.
It would piss me off if I was a Lions fan and I had to watch that on national television. Oh, yeah. Watch that and watch the game. Everything was going the Lions' way. They took the ball all the way down the field. And by the way, Laporta looked fantastic in the last 2 minutes of the game. And Jared Goff finally woke up all game long. I think he had his head up his ass. And then finally he was throwing the ball. He was making plays. And maybe Dan Campbell was being a little bit more safe throughout the game. And their defense finally woke up in the fourth quarter. So that's something that I want to see the Lions do more, and I want to see the Lions do it in big games. This was a big game for the Lions. If they win the game, if the Lions win the game, anything could happen with San Francisco in the final game of the week.
But this is the thing. You want to see them do it in a big game. They just did it in a big game.
Yes.
They had it taken from them,
yes.
robbed from them.
No.
Absolute theft. So they can do it in big games.
They did it at the end of the game. They didn't do it throughout the game. They actually got outplayed by a Dallas Cowboy team. They only have one weapon, guys. One weapon.
So think about what you're saying, though. They can still play bad and win. That's still okay.
Well, it is the Cowboys. I mean, I don't think the Cowboys are that good. They have CeeDee Lamb. They have a couple of good defensive players.
I don't think.
And I know you don't like Dak, but I like Dak. I think Dak's a quality quarterback.
You don't think the Cowboys are very good? But
no, I don't.
Ago, it was Dak for MVP.
Yeah, I think Dak deserves a chance to win an MVP this year. Yes, he played very well all season long. What makes you think? What makes you think that Dak Prescott would have put these numbers up with any other team? And again, I do believe that he would have put these numbers up with any other team, but other people have said that if he played for any other team, he wouldn't have put those numbers up. And I say, why? You have CeeDee Lamb on one side of the field. You have nobody else. You really don't. You have nobody.
Right.
Michael Gallup stinks.
But that can be said.
Cooks is old.
Right, but that can be said for a lot of football teams. There are a lot of teams out there that have one guy on one side and nobody else.
Yeah, who? Good football teams that are in the playoffs, that are going to the playoffs.
Good football teams. Let's see, who's going to the playoffs? The Browns.
The Browns don't have good wide receivers all over the field.
They have one. They have Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper. What? Elijah Moore's not bad. He had what? 900. He had 900 yards this year. Oh, that's not very bad. He had close to 900 yards.
I would say Njoku is still an elite weapon.
Njoku. They did lose
Ferguson is the same thing, but Ferguson's the same thing. He's just as good as Njoku. So if you're including that, then Dak also has Ferguson.
Okay. And how about Pollard? Is he good? Is Pollard good?
Better than Zeke.
Well, I wouldn't say he's better than Zeke, but he hasn't had a good season. He's the number one guy.
When they were on the same team, he took the job. He proved he was.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, last year, because
this year has been
Zeke wasn't 100% healthy last year. He wasn't. And now what was he, a fourth string running back for the Patriots this year?
Who do the Ravens have?
What do you mean who the Ravens have? They have Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers.
All right, Zay Flowers, and then who on the other side?
Odell Beckham, Bateman.
Right. Okay, now look at his numbers, and I'll bet you Cooks had a better.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Bateman was not healthy again this year. I think Bateman's and again they have Andrews that's coming back. Andrews is one of the best tight ends in football.
Right? Hold on. Again, he's not there, and Bateman is not there, and Odell is old.
Bateman is there. Bateman is there.
And Odell is old with worse numbers than Brandon Cooks. No, you hate that. That's a correct point. You said name the team. I do, and then you don't like it.
The Ravens have good weapons. What are you talking about? They have a good running game, and they have good wide receivers and tight ends. They're a backup tight end. Who was their backup tight end? He had a really good season when he took over for Andrews. I think he had, 600-700 yards for a tight end?
He had close to 600 yards.
6 touchdowns, 6 or 7 touchdowns. That's pretty damn good. So I disagree. Who the Chiefs have? Well, again, it's Patrick Mahomes here, and it's Patrick, the great Patrick Mahomes.
So let's take Dak and put him on the Chiefs, and how is he doing?
How's he doing? I think he does just as well as Patrick Mahomes. I do.
No way.
Why?
No way.
Why? The Chiefs. First of all, the Chiefs are good this year because of their defense. And certain aspects of their game, Pacheco actually showed up in certain games and disappear in other games. Travis Kelce is a shell of himself. Maybe it's age, maybe it's injury. Maybe teams are starting to figure out, hey, you take Travis Kelce out of the game, they can't beat you. Rice was pretty good this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they have weapons. They have weapons. I'm not saying they're top weapons.
They don't. Their weapons are Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Oh, please. He actually got dropped, and then they brought him back.
Tony.
Well, you liked him.
Hardman.
You liked him, Mr. Human Joystick.
I still like Tony. I think it's a confidence thing. I honestly think it's a confidence thing. It's like a Chuck Knobloch thing with him because he has a shit ton of talent, that dude. When he gets going, he's great, but it's just tough to get him going.
Well, he showed up in the playoffs last year, especially in the Super Bowl.
He was the reason why they won a Super Bowl.
He showed up in the Super Bowl, but throughout the season, he was he played the drop-a-thon.
Yeah, and he was also a healthy scratch for some games too. Shows everything.
He's the human drop-a-thon. That's what I call it.
But if you notice though, because everyone's still stuck on the week 1 thing, he had all the drops. Week 2, he was fantastic.
No, we're also stuck on 3 weeks ago when he lined up offensively offsides.
That was another thing too, which cost the Chiefs the game.
Yep.
Well, that wasn't him that lined up offsides. That's the referee's fault. The referee should give him a break.
Referee.
Tell him to line up.
For referee.
But yeah, they give him a break, but they won't give the Lions a break.
And that's also a coaching thing, by the way. Did you ever notice Andy Reid teams always have trouble lining up on sides?
They do. They did it against the Browns a couple of years ago in the playoffs. Yep. They made a couple of mistakes.
They did it against the Patriots in the playoffs twice. Remember when Brady threw the interception over Gronk's head? But Chris Jones was lined up offsides?
Yep.
Or D Ford? I thought it was Chris Jones.
Yeah, I remember.
No, but Chris Jones had that sack that was taken away from the ball. It's terrible roughing the passer call too, though.
Right. That's a coaching thing. That's a total coaching thing. As great as Andy Reid is, he's terrible at telling people where to line up.
And again, I still think Andy Reid is a top 2 coach right now in the NFL. You can't even argue that. Oh, yeah. But he also has a top quarterback and arguably the best tight end in football.
I mean, you can argue that, right? You can argue that he's a top 2 coach. Look at what the offense is doing, right? I hate to be this dude, but Eric Bieniemy was there for a really long time, making that offense go and hum and look really good. And then when Tyreek left the year before last year, right? That offense was still going pretty good. Oh, we're still pretty good. We're still moving the ball. Eric Bieniemy leaves, and now look at the Chiefs. They stink.
Well, again, that's how you bring back the great Matt Nagy.
And here's the problem, too. Eric Bieniemy, who should get a job, for some reason doesn't interview very well. If he did, he'd have a coaching job right now.
You don't know that he doesn't interview well.
14 teams interviewed him. 14. I think 2 teams interviewed him twice, and they still didn't want to hire him.
Right. People go into these things already knowing what they're doing because you can't go, he's gotten 14 interviews, because I would be willing to bet you 12 of those interviews were just to satisfy the
hold on. First of all, I said 2 teams interviewed him twice. So that was 4. And the rest, it was 14 times he was interviewed. 14.
Right. And how many times was it just to satisfy the room?
I don't know. But the fact is, he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job.
He does have a job.
No, he's an offensive coordinator. And maybe he gets the Washington Commanders job.
That's the same job he had in Kansas City, though. He
was
making the offense
and the reason why did he leave Kansas City? Why did he leave Kansas City?
Because he felt like he needed a new challenge. How's that?
No, he left Kansas City because he wanted to prove himself, and he didn't want to be under a guy like Andy Reid. Everybody was saying this is Andy Reid's offense, and you're running Andy Reid's offense, and he was getting all the credit. Now he went to Sam Howell, and Sam Howell had a good season. Yeah.
Right, and look what happened. Let's give Andy Reid credit for ruining the Chiefs' offense.
I don't know if he ruined the Chiefs' offense.
Again, there's still somebody else to blame first, and his name is Matt Nagy.
And again,
who wasn't the greatest head coach at Chicago.
Their offense wasn't bad. I think it was in the top 8, top 7 this year.
Dog shit.
How is it dog crap when you're in it? I think they're ranked 7th in all offense.
I think scoring offense, they're 8th. I think yards offense, they're 12th or something. But
it doesn't matter. They're amongst
that's
the
not all
best.
coaching either. They're still doing good concepts.
They have no number 1 wide receiver, as Jeff wants to tell us. And then obviously they're still putting up the numbers.
And we gave this same credit to the Giants last year when they had those god-awful wide receivers. And Brian Dable was still, even though their offense was ranked 16th, he was still thought of as a good coach. Now you can't downplay Andy Reid for the same thing.
That Wink, Martindale, and obviously Dable thing is going to grow legs by the end of the season. I definitely want to see what's going to happen with the Giants. That story.
Who cares about the Giants? This is Jets country.
Jeff, thank you for calling, bud.
This is just all Jets all the time, man. Let's go.
Oh, here we go. Jeff from Tampa, ladies and gentlemen. The Philadelphia Inquirer. Marcus Hayes reported after the Eagles' 35-31 loss against the Cardinals that there is tension tearing this team apart. Reports have mentioned that it has been with A.J. Brown and head coach Nick Sirianni, starting after their loss against the Seahawks. Brown declined to speak to the media after the game, but did speak to the media today, sticking up for Sirianni and taking the blame for the Eagles' offensive woes. Brown also took shots at reporters for singling him out when he said all his teammates have been frustrated with how they have played in the last 5 weeks. Brown said it is also false narrative that people are saying he is demanding the ball and is the loud one in the offense. Edge rusher Hassan Reddick was also reportedly frustrated with Sirianni for his role in the defense. The Eagles switched defensive coordinators from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia before their game versus the Seahawks and have allowed 26.6 points per game in that span. First of all, we all know who Matt Patricia is. He was the offensive coordinator for the Patriots last season with our friend Joe Judge.
Yep.
I know he's a scientist and a rocket extraordinaire. I mean, that's what he is. And I think Matt Patricia was a great defensive coordinator under Bill Belichick, but I think every defensive coordinator that has worked under Bill Belichick was good. I mean, seriously, go look at the numbers. Bill Belichick is a mastermind. He's a great defensive mind. And I'm not taking that away from Matt Patricia, but we saw him when he coached for the Lions a couple of years. That defense was putrid. That offense was really bad. And again, is Matt Patricia the answer to taking over this defense going into the playoffs? That made no sense. You're going to fire your defensive coordinator, with 2 games left of the season? Does that make any sense? You're going to start a complete unknown defense going into the playoffs. It doesn't make sense. And again, I think Sirianni has been a very good coach in the league, but for him to change this, the way he changed it at the end of the season makes absolutely no sense.
And again, you also look at this defense the way it's been for years, too. Ever since the Eagles hired Doug Peterson in 2016, it's always been an attacking 4-3 defense. And the last time they were 3-4 was when Chip Kelly was coaching. I remember their defense those years were horrible, too, despite having good talent. All this defensive line talent carried over, and they still had good corner safety play. They had great safety play and linebackers. Now they have good corner play that's being misused. They have good pass rushing play that's now being back into a 3-4 defense, which is taking away from their role as a sack machine that they were last year. Remember, they had 73 sacks or something last year.
And Hassan Reddick was a big part of that.
Hassan Reddick was a huge
This
part
hurts his defensive style of game.
And Hassan Reddick, at one point, I think week 10 or 11, something like that, was one of the top 5 guys in sacks in the league. And all of a sudden, I think he only has 2 in the last 6 games. So I have every right to believe that he has a right to be frustrated too. Matt Patricia's trying to bring this hybrid Patriot.
You hear that, everybody?
Defense.
Everybody, Speedy has every right to be angry. Did you hear that? You hear that? Yeah. Scoop said it. You said it. Go ahead, Speedy.
If I was Hassan Reddick, I would.
You have every right Sorry.
Yeah, I was just on Reddick. I would
You can't handle the truth.
I would definitely be worried about that kind of role too. Now, Reddick's played in 3-4 defenses in the past, so I think he's more used to it than some of these other players. But still, he has every right to be frustrated. And same kind of thing with AJ Brown too. When AJ Brown,
I made fun of you because you said you had every right.
And AJ Brown in this role in this offense too recently has been disappearing really since the 49ers game. They have not had a big role for him. When he was the second best statistical wide receiver in the league through 11 weeks before that, all of a sudden they keep misusing him. They misuse their running backs. Their running game has not been the same way. Jalen Hurts has been turnover prone, and they've not adjusted to that kind of thing. And all the Eagles fans that wanted their offensive coordinator being fired, I think is getting a little more justified at this point. I don't think it's completely on Sirianni, but these coordinators, these new rookie coordinators that have come in with their other coaches going elsewhere, it's starting to become a problem.
You can understand why the Bills decided to part ways with their offensive coordinator, and it's worked. It's worked for Josh Allen, but it didn't happen at the end of the season. It happened, 7-8 games into the season. So it gave them a little bit more time to figure out how they're going to run their offense. Now you bring in a new defensive coordinator with 2 games left of the season. You're going to playoffs running a completely different defense where you have all these explosive players that are going to have to figure out how they're going to run this defense moving forward. It doesn't make any sense. This is a bad move by Nick Sirianni. If he was going to make this change, he should have made it a long time ago. A long time ago.
And again, if your offense is really struggling as much as it has, like Sirianni could just take over play calling himself too. That's maybe the one thing I will blame him for, but still, like most of it, I think is on the game planning. It's on the coaching. We were talking about when they played the Jets. Like, how bad was their game plan against the Jets? And the Jets, who have no offense whatsoever, were able to win that game.
Zilch.
And same kind of thing here. The Cardinals have no defense to speak of whatsoever. Their defense has been abysmal all year. They're the worst run defense in the NFL, and they barely run the ball. AJ Brown is not having this like world-class game. I think Goddard in a nice game and Smith in a nice game, fine, but they're not really game planning it to the best of their advantage. And their defense, which the Cardinals offense, Kyler Murray's played well, but he's not overly productive offense besides that. McBride's okay as a nice young rookie tight end. They have no receivers to speak of, and they're lighting you up for 35 points. Like, something is going on here coaching-wise, game planning-wise, and late in the game, too. They're crumbling.
And by the way, Devontae Smith suffers an ankle sprain. And to me, an ankle sprain, if it's a high ankle sprain, he could be out a significant amount of time. If it's a low ankle sprain, he's not going to be 100%, even if he sits out this week going into the playoffs. That's bad. And A.J. Brown, I have to give A.J. Brown a lot of credit. This is a guy that sits back. He knows how talented he is. He is a top 3, top 4 wide receiver in the league. He was a top 3, top 4 wide receiver in my eyes when he played for Tennessee. And the fact that he has a problem with the coach and then comes back at the next day after the game and really doesn't throw the coach under the bus. He didn't want to answer any of the questions and then sticks up for the coach the next day when he knows the coach was absolutely wrong for what he did throughout the game. Says a lot about A.J. Brown, says a lot about his character. So for any of the Philadelphia fans that have said things on social media about A.J. Brown, or even some of the people that didn't like A.J. Brown that is not a Philadelphia fan, shame on you, because this guy is a class act. He is a classy person. For him to come out and really take all the blame for the offensive woes.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of these Eagle fans, even today, when he came out with the comments, are taking his side for the most part
now,
because they've been
now,
yes, you're right, and it's understandable.
Not yesterday,
no, not an immediate reaction, because like any other like super loud, passionate sports city that some people call arrogant and annoying, they're going to be reactionary. We said the same thing with Yankee fans, with Giancarlo Stanton, and
please,
and like everyone was saying, oh, he had a bad slump, so they started booing him. And obviously, there's other fan bases like that too, Chicago, Boston, etc. They were in the moment reacting because they had a really bad loss that should never have happened to the Arizona Cardinals, a loss that is going to possibly cost them the division if somehow Dallas doesn't blow it against Washington. But even so, A.J. Brown has never been thought of as this quote-unquote diva wide receiver that you've seen with these other guys too. It's not like you're dealing with somebody like Tyreek Hill that likes to run his mouth, or one of those types of receivers. Like Deebo Samuel loves to talk. A.J. Brown has never been that type of player. His college teammate, DK Metcalf, loves to talk. A.J. Brown's never been thought of that way. He's always been thought of as more of that humble type. He'll make a comment here and there, but like he's had most of his issues have come when it comes to just being inconsistent in the playoffs. But beyond that, he's a great wide receiver, and probably before this recent stretch, the second best statistical wide receiver in the league.
He's been unbelievable this year. And again, everybody keeps talking about how great Tyreek Hill's been this year. Don't take away what a guy of this magnitude. And by the way, and I'm going to say this, A.J. Brown has been as good as Tyreek Hill. Maybe his numbers don't stand out as much as Tyreek Hill, but in certain games, they stood out. And he did it against very good teams this year. It's not like, and I'm going to say Tyreek Hill did it against anybody. He did it against good defensive backs and bad defensive backs. But so did A.J. Brown. Now, I'm not saying A.J. Brown he was better than Tyreek Hill this year, but he was right. It was neck and neck with him. Jefferson would have been right there too if he didn't get hurt, but he got hurt. So to me, the two best wide receivers in football this year, actually three, I would say Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, and CeeDee Lamb.
Yep. CeeDee Lamb is only because of A.J. Brown's recent slump just surpassed him in every category now because CeeDee Lamb's been
But again, I'm going to go back to this whole Matt Patricia thing. This doesn't make any sense. If you sit back and you wonder, the Eagles are making the playoffs. They're going into the playoffs. They're limping in the playoffs. Right. They're limping. Actually, they had one leg cut off and they're hobbling into the playoffs. And honestly, they got to figure this out very quickly, because if they go into the playoffs and they're going to have at least one home game, if they go into the playoffs and they play a team that's getting hot at the end of the season and sneak into the playoffs, they could be knocked out in the wild card game.
Mm-hmm. And what this recent performance of defense shows you that you can trust any level of that. Even the game they won recently, they allowed 25 points against the Giants. The Giants have only scored 30 points in 2 games this season.
They could play the Seahawks in the first game.
No, they're both be wild card. They would play the Buccaneers or the Saints, whoever wins that division.
Okay, so it would be the Buccaneers more than likely.
Most likely the Buccaneers, who have good wide receivers too. They have Baker Mayfield playing well, and it's a well-coached offense. They play
I think the Buccaneers knock them out right now.
They definitely could, because the Buccaneers also hung tough with them in the their first meeting in the regular season. It was week 4 before Tampa was really that much established.
They lost their identity against the Jets. As soon as they lost that game against the New York Jets with all the mistakes, and they won a couple of games after that, and they were playing decent football, but you could tell they lost their identity. The Jets outplayed them in so many ways in their game. And if you remember the Eagles last year, they were very sloppy at the end of the season. Maybe because Jalen Hurts was hurt, maybe that, but even sneaking into the playoffs the way they did, and they didn't sneak, they made the playoffs, but they, again, crawled into the playoffs. In the first game throughout the playoffs, they did not look good. Okay. And against the Giants, it was a different game. Obviously, they exploded, and then they changed everything when they went into the NFC title game. But again, if it wasn't for them knocking out Brock Purdy, maybe they don't go to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. I think also the difference with last year and this year is last year they were playing more conservative because of Jalen Hurts and because they had pretty much the division locked up at this point. Dallas came back and had a nice wild card run to get them higher in the standings, and like their point differential was good, so people still thought they were good, but they were never a real threat for the division because the Eagles were pretty much 2 or 3 games up the entire year. This year has not been that same case because the Eagles had that slump, and even the games they won, they struggled in. They should have the Bills outplayed the Eagles. The Eagles won in overtime, but they didn't look good in that game. Like I said, the Giants scored 25 points on them. The Cardinals, the Cardinals at the start of the year.
Is that a quack? Is that give me
a chirp?
Yeah, give me a chirp. Give me a cardinal sound. Give me a cardinal sound. Come on.
It's a songbird. It's the best songbird I could do.
A songbird.
And I can't whistle, so I can't even go there. But...
well, I was a duck. I don't even know what cardinal sounds like. So I was quacking.
Yes, but that offense that just gets their quarterback back about a month ago puts up 35 points. Again, they have a good running back. They have a good tight end. This is not a great offensive line, yet the Eagles couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback, and they allow 35 points. There is definitely much more concern this year with this Eagles team than last year's Eagles team, and a lot of that has to do with assistant coaches, which that's why I don't blame Sirianni as much, but Sirianni has to figure things out, overpower himself as the head coach.
With the Panthers' loss to the Jaguars in Week 17, the Bears have locked in the number 1 pick in the draft this year. Many executives believe that Justin Fields will likely be traded if the front office likes the way Caleb Williams handles himself in the pre-draft process. The Raiders and the Falcons are 2 teams interested in Fields if he becomes available. During the Bears' win against the Falcons, many fans were chanting for Justin Fields, saying, "We all want Justin." Could we do it together? We all want Justin. We all want Justin. Do it again.
We all want Justin.
All right, you're terrible. I don't want to hear your voice.
I'm not a Bears fan.
Many Bears players, including Montez Sweat Eddie Jackson, DJ Moore have shown their support to Fields and want him as their franchise quarterback moving forward. The Bears also announced that both head coaches, Matt Eberflus and GM Ryan Poles, will be returning for another season. Big mistake, by the way. The Bears are a top 10 in both offense and defense since Fields' return in Week 11 and are 4-2 in those games. Fields would be entering his 4th season in the league, which means they would have to decide on his 5th-year option before the draft, which would be about $25 million. First of all, I love Justin Fields. I do not believe, just like Kyler Murray, I do not believe the Chicago Bears should draft a quarterback. I think they have a quarterback. They need to build with this quarterback. You're bringing in Caleb Williams. You're bringing in any one of these guys. A Bo Nix. I'm just saying. He's not going one. I'm just saying. But, hey, maybe Chicago decides that they're going to trade down and draft the quarterback at the end of the draft. Who knows? I have no idea what the Bears are thinking. But honestly, Caleb Williams is the same type of quarterback as Justin Fields. Justin Fields is not as accurate as Caleb Williams, but Justin Fields has just as good arm as Caleb Williams. He's faster than Caleb Williams, and he changes defenses against him. Justin Fields makes you have to change your defense at the line of scrimmage. I don't know if Caleb Williams does that. And here's the problem with Caleb Williams. I think he's a great quarterback. He's sensational. He came out and said he wants to own a piece of a team, which makes absolutely no sense. That can't happen. We've seen this before. We've seen players try to do that. It's not going to happen. The NFL will not allow it. But this guy has been a cocky kid for the last 2 seasons. And I love Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be a sensational quarterback in the NFL. I really do. If they develop him right, wherever he goes, he is going to be a monster in the NFL. But if he goes to the wrong team, a.k.a. the Jets, I know, I'm a Jet fan, he could fail. He could fail. And this is the problem. The Chicago Bears and a lot of these teams still looking for their quarterback. The Chicago Bears have never had a franchise quarterback. Never. If you go, even when they won the Super Bowl in 85-86, they never really had a franchise quarterback. That defense was explosive. They were as good a defense we've ever seen in history. A Buddy Ryan defense. I honestly believe they have a franchise quarterback here. Justin Fields is a franchise quarterback. And if they decide to part ways with him, they're not going to get a first-round draft pick for him because, 1, he can't stay healthy, and 2, he hasn't put up the numbers enough to be consistent enough to get a first-round draft pick. So right now, if you look at Justin Fields, you might be able to get a 2nd and a 4th. You might, just like a Sam Darnold. You'll get a 2nd and a 4th, and then maybe you can build around those guys. Hey, the Jets did. The Jets got a lot back for Sam Darnold. But I think the Jets regret trading Sam Darnold after seeing what Zach Wilson turned into.
Well, yeah, the process is going to be very different than who you end up drafting as a quarterback.
Especially the players.
Yeah.
You have Montez Sweat, Eddie Jackson, DJ Moore. These are franchise players. These are going to be Montez Sweat just signed a big-time contract. DJ Moore is going to be there for a significant amount of time. Eddie Jackson is one of their best young players on their team. If you're hearing all 3 players come out and stick up for a guy like Justin Fields, why would you decide to part ways with him?
Yeah, and again, you also look at the process of doing it again, trying to do it with a different quarterback altogether, that you have to hope that these coaches can be able to mature. If it is Caleb Williams, that's going to be an additional challenge. If he's not that type of maturity level quarterback that we think he could be, but he was in college at the end of the season, that's going to be a whole different thing. Drake May, same kind of thing. He doesn't have those maturity issues, but it's a whole different scheme.
Those
altogether.
North Carolina quarterbacks, I don't trust them. I really don't. Everybody keeps saying, well, Drake May. First of all, after watching Penix play for Washington, and he's going to the national championship, shame on Mel Kiper putting him as the 5th best quarterback in this class.
Well,
that kid is going to be a beast. That kid reminds me of a Lamar Jackson. He's a better Lamar Jackson. And it's crazy to say that because Lamar Jackson looks like he's going to win his 2nd MVP in the last, 5 years, 6 years? It's unbelievable. And he could win the Super Bowl this year. And I think Penix is just as good as Lamar Jackson was when he left Louisville.
And you also look at the process of where the Bears are at right now. Because this quarterback class is so riveted as it is, you're going to get a lot more value than what you traded up when you had the number 1 pick last year too. Carolina gave up a bunch of first-round picks and some mid-tier picks, and obviously DJ Moore, but you're going to get a package probably close to double that if Caleb Williams is that level of maturity for the NFL, because athletically, he's the most talented quarterback prospect we've seen probably since Andrew Luck. So they already have that on their side to their advantage. And Justin Fields has proven that he could be a part of this offense, an offense that has had injuries with running backs, had injuries with wide receivers. He got hurt, obviously. And since he's come back, I think there's some advanced stats he's not great in, but besides that, he's been a pretty consistent quarterback. And they haven't had to do it in much of a volume, so maybe Fields has to see how that happens. But this is a team that has not had the adversity on their side. It's not like Justin Fields is playing with the Miami Dolphins skill players and struggling. That would be different. DJ Moore and Cole Kmet are really all they got.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. Just like Jeff, you can call the show. You can interact with us. We'll give you a chance to speak. But you're right, Speedy. Justin Fields didn't have any weapons until this year. They finally made a trade, and they added DJ Moore. DJ Moore was back and forth all season long. They had to build chemistry. They finally built chemistry. Then, obviously, the situation with Justin Fields, he gets hurt. He was out a significant amount of time. He comes back. I think he missed like 4 games. He comes back, and then it took him a little while to get his feet right under him. So I think Justin Fields deserves another chance to take over for this team. And being that you have the number 1 pick, and right now, I think 8th or 9th right now, sitting there. I don't know where. Go to Tankathon, Speedy, find out where they're sitting. I think they're at 1 right now and 9. I think they're right behind the Jets at 8. So if you're sitting here today, if you're sitting, I'd trade that number 1 pick. I'd start building with those picks. You could get 3 first-round draft picks. Anybody wants Caleb Williams or Drake May or Penix. If Penix does very well at the combine, you can give up that pick and get a significant amount back for them.
They're currently 10 right now. Falcons are 9. And
so they have 1 and 10.
Vegas is 11. Yep. So then they can still move up depending on
all they have to do, honestly, is trade down probably 6 or 7 spots. You can get an additional 2 first-round and 2 second-round draft picks, maybe even more than that. If somebody wants Caleb Williams or somebody wants Drake May, honestly, or a Penix, you can change your franchise right there. And this is something that Chicago's done for the last couple of years. This makes a lot of sense if they want to rebuild. Why would you decide to part ways with a guy like Justin Fields, who has a tremendous amount of talent? You traded up for, yes, you gave up another first-round draft pick with the New York Giants. What was it, 3 years ago, to move up to get Justin Fields, and because of injury and because you never gave him any weapons until his 3rd season, you're deciding, hey, you know what? He's not good enough. We're going to part ways with him. It's a big mistake. And I'm going to tell you right now, shame on the Jets if they don't look at Justin Fields in the offseason. I would give up. They don't have a 2nd-round draft pick. Give up a 2nd next year and a 3rd this year, and you could get Justin Fields sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. Because again, you can't trust Aaron Rodgers to play in an 18-week season. I don't know if he plays 18 weeks. I think you're better off believing that he'll play 14, 15 weeks and get him for the playoffs if they figure out the offensive woes that they have.
Right. And also, there's 2 things that help the Bears, too, because Justin Fields, if they do give him that 5th-year option, it's $25 million, which is definitely affordable for them, a team that hasn't paid as many big contracts. They spent on Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards on defense in the offseason. Obviously, they paid Sweat, like you were saying. And DJ Moore, they're taking on the last 2 years of his deal, which are a lot. That's it. Everything else is young on that team. And the Justin Fields getting it for $25 million, that's what Jimmy Garoppolo is getting paid right now.
He's underpaid.
Yeah. So that is not really that big of a risk as it is. And then there's also the option of how far you could trade back to. You can go easily get a 2nd wide receiver for him.
If I were the Patriots right now and if Justin Fields becomes available, I would absolutely put all my marbles in going after Justin Fields and take that pick that you have at number, 3 right now?
Yeah.
And take that pick and draft either an offensive lineman or a key wide receiver. They haven't had a number 1 wide receiver since, I don't know, Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Okay. Go draft a great wide receiver. You could get, I don't know if Marvin Harrison will be there. Where are the Patriots drafting? You add it up right now.
The Patriots are 3rd right now. Arizona is 4.
All right. So you could get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3 because I know Arizona is definitely going to put all their marbles into Marvin Harrison if he's sitting there at 4. I don't think Harrison is going 1 or 2 because I think both teams at 1 and 2 are drafting a quarterback, whoever moves up in that 1 spot. So Marvin Harrison will be there at 3. I think you bring in Justin Fields, you go after Marvin Harrison, and then you could build your team right around those two weapons that you have. It makes a lot of sense. I think it's a big mistake what the Chicago Bears are doing. And the GM will be fired for this. And by the way, Eberflus should not have a job. He should not have a job. I don't care where they're ranked in the last, 6 games since week 11. It doesn't sell to me, okay? I've seen enough of Eberflus. I would say at some points this year, he lost the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
He did, but how do you bring him back? Again, you had Lovie Smith there for years. Remember Lovie Smith? He was there for 9-10 years?
Right.
And this is a guy that took you to 1 Super Bowl, but nevertheless, Eberflus has not accomplished anything that Lovie Smith did. And then you decided to part ways with Lovie Smith because he had 1 bad season.
Yeah, it's a weird dilemma because you look at Eberflus, the second half turnaround with this defense, like him coaching the defense has been very good. Now, I think the main issue, like we were talking about with the Eagles, is the fact that the coordinators have sometimes held Justin Fields and this offense back and certain points the defense as well. That's on Luke Getsy. Now, here's the other side, though. The Chargers thought that same kind of thing with Brandon Staley, fired their offensive coordinator, brought in Kellen Moore, and how badly did that backfire this year?
Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore, the offensive guru for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
Oh, my God. Do you see the Chargers offense this year? Unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Justin Fields had a breakout year after getting over $240 million. Congratulations to Kellen Moore sucking it up again.
And guess who else was sucking it up again? Brandon Staley, that same quote-unquote defensive genius that did well.
Nathaniel Hackett being another one.
Yeah, Brandon Staley did well that first year defensively. The second year, they were kind of good at points, but they were never a consistently good defense. And this year, they're the worst defense in the NFL for most of the season. And
wonderful.
That's your great Brandon Staley that you decided to bring back for 1 more year. So that's the risk you run bringing Eberflus back. What I love as a defensive coordinator, as a head coach, he has not shown much whatsoever.
Yeah, but this usually happens in the NFL. A lot of these guys, these coordinators, they're not two-way guys. And A.K.A. Robert Saleh. The Jets defense is one of the league's best. Problem is, everything else stinks. Their special teams, this was one of the best special teams in the league. That's why they kept their special teams coach, the New York Jets. They decided to keep the special. He was the only coach kept by that regime. He was the only one. And that, because of the fact of what the special teams did year in and year out, they bring in Robert Saleh, and this special teams has been putrid. Okay, absolutely horrific. And this offense, as bad as Mike LaFleur was, this offense is even worse. Even worse. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, there is no Aaron Rodgers this year. I understand that, and we're going to get into that with Matt O'Leary. Okay, I have a lot to say to Matt. And Matt, I did a podcast a while ago on another show, and I was actually a special guest host of the show, and I interviewed Matt O'Leary, and me and him went back and forth. Matt knows his Jets, and we will get into the Jets. This team is not going to win with Robert Saleh. They're just not. They're not winning with Robert Saleh. They're not going to win with Nathaniel Hackett, as good as Aaron Rodgers is going to make them next year. And they'll probably win 10 or 11 games, maybe 12 games next year. It's not going to make a difference because there's no leadership in that locker room. None. I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about the specifics of the coaches. And if you don't have a coach that can coach men, there's a big problem. A.K.A. Deion Sanders, who came out and said that he doesn't want to coach men. He wants to coach boys. And the reason why is as soon as you get into a man locker room, when it comes to money, they all think that they're better than you. They all think that they know more than you. And they don't care if you're a Hall of Fame corner. They don't care if you're a known player that played in the league in the 80s and the 90s. Because in the end, it's all about, what have you done for me lately?
And that's the decision for the Bears interesting. They have to be so sure that the relationship is not shattered between Eberflus and Justin Fields of what it was in the beginning of the season. It was getting really ugly at the beginning of the season. They were taking shots at all these other coaches, and Eberflus did nothing to do to stabilize that kind of thing. Now, Ryan Poles, I think, has done a nice job as a GM. Obviously,
he's all right.
Getting those draft picks. I think
isn't his father? He was a GM.
I'm not sure offhand, but
I think his father was a GM years ago.
If that's the case, it fits nicely because I think the Bears draft picks, especially on defense, have been very good the last couple of years. Now, it took them a while because they had no pass rush for a while to get going on defense, but most of their secondary pieces, their young linebackers have been very good. And the offensive line has been very good this year for the Bears. Getting Braxton Jones healthy as a 5th-round pick has been a nice tackle. They obviously drafting Darnell Wright this year in the 1st round. And they've done well. Komet was his pick, too. Like, they've done well with getting those pieces together. But he has to be so sure that Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields are going to have a good relationship with each other if they want to keep him going forward. Otherwise, they're going to have to trade Fields. They have no choice.
Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon said on the Burns and Gambo show that there is no doubt Kyler Murray will be there and their starter quarterback next season. Murray will be entering the 3rd year of his 5-year, $230 million contract. His contract has a cap hit of $43 million for the rest of the deal. Murray has suffered multiple injuries in his career, including a torn ACL that kept him out for most of this season. In 7 games since returning from the injury, Murray has 1,537 passing yards, 9 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 211 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. The Cardinals are 3-4 in those games, with wins against teams that were in the playoffs or have a playoff spot, beating the Falcons, the Steelers, and the Eagles. The Cardinals currently hold the 4th pick in the draft after upsetting the Eagles in week 17. First of all, Kyler Murray, I believe, and me and you, Speedy, we have stood out and stuck up. And I say stood out because everybody gave up on Kyler Murray. After what he did, what was it, 2 seasons ago, speaking in a third person, getting knocked out of the playoffs. Yes, getting knocked out of the playoffs by the Rams, who, by the way, won the Super Bowl. We stood up for a guy like Kyler Murray, who has really thrown himself under the bus over the last couple of years. But the kid has a tremendous amount of talent. He's a very accurate quarterback. He doesn't have the size, but we have seen quarterbacks at his size become successful. Russell Wilson being one of them. He's been successful before he decided to move to, Denver. But nevertheless, he had a pretty good season, but it hasn't worked out over there because of his cocky ego. But we've seen Drew Brees. Drew Brees is another quarterback. Kyler Murray can use his legs. He can throw. He could do all those things that you expect a quarterback to do now in the game these days. But again, Kyler Murray is a significant personality in that locker room. Now, I believe Arizona needs to stop drafting quarterbacks. The Rosen situation didn't work out after a year. You decide to go and draft Kyler Murray as your number 1 pick, and then you bring in a coach because the coach believes in Kyler Murray, and he thought he can run his offense through Kyler Murray. It didn't work for those last couple of years, and that's why he was fired. But Kyler Murray he's a game changer. He can change a game with his legs and his throwing potential. The problem right now with Arizona is they don't have any weapons. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, I know he's a very good friend of Kyler Murray, and that's why he was traded there. They don't have a game-changing wide receiver. And John Connor will probably not be back next year. He's been sensational since they signed him over there. And we all remember him with Pittsburgh, the cancer situation. He went over there with the Cardinals for the last 2-3 years and has been sensational for them. But he is not re-signing with them, and they're probably not going to invest in a running back because it's not affordable in the contract that they gave to a guy like Kyler Murray. So, and they're not going to go after a big name wide receiver because Kyler Murray is making a significant amount of money, and they need to invest their money in other positions that they're weak in. So when you look at Kyler Murray, you have control of him. And right now, if you look at his contract compared to all the elite quarterbacks in the league, he's underpaid. So you're sitting there right now. You have a good quarterback, a quarterback you can win with, who's underpaid. If you look at Joe Burrow's money right now, Joe Burrow is making over $50 million. Patrick Mahomes is making over $50 million. Josh Allen's making closer to $50 million. All these quarterbacks. Dak Prescott's going to make over $50 million. He is, I wouldn't say he's elite until he does it for a full season again, but you have a potential elite quarterback right now who's being underpaid. And you add a top-end Marvin Harrison or a Neighbors, you put a beast of a weapon like that on the other side to give him a weapon, an explosive weapon like Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow. You're talking about numbers like a guy like Neighbor who can, as a rookie, have 11 or 12 touchdowns and have over 1,400 yards.
And again, you also look at the value that Kyler Murray would have in the trade market, being he signed a big contract. It's not going to be much. Like with the Bears with Justin Fields, we can expect him to get a second-round pick because he's not being paid anything right now. Kyler Murray is not going to have that kind of thing when you have $43 million plus of dead cap coming the next 3 years. Then he has a player option he can opt into.
But he is a weapon. And I do believe if Kyler Murray finishes the season up strong, you could probably get a late first-round draft pick for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, here's the thing. He's proven. Kyler Murray has taken this team to the playoffs. He's put up big numbers in a season. He's proven that he can do it. Hence the reason why they gave him a 5-year, $230 million contract. Justin Fields hasn't fully proved it because Justin Fields has used his legs more than his arm because they never gave him weapons. Kyler Murray, over the years, he had weapons. They decided to send one of his weapons to the Jaguars, which we were so surprised after the money that Christian Kirk got. I was so surprised that Christian Kirk got the money, the $70-something million contract that he got, and then automatically changed my mind after the first season, putting up the numbers that he did. Christian Kirk was the real deal, and that was the last good wide receiver. I don't want to hear about Hopkins. Hopkins, he had an up and down career with the Arizona Cardinals. Christian Kirk, when he was on the field, he had good seasons over there in Arizona.
Right. This is also an organization, too, that's had trouble drafting wide receivers recently and has just had trouble keeping those player relationships going, too. And that's something that hurts Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray, from a physical perspective, is still very athletic and gifted as a quarterback.
Absolutely.
The other thing that goes against him, though, is his injury history, too, which is not ideal.
That's every quarterback.
I know. But it definitely is going to make a risk for a team trying to trade significant assets to get somebody like Kyler Murray. So I think the Cardinals are doing the right thing and realizing, okay, since we're not going to get the trade value we're expecting, we're not going to sell short. We're going to keep and build this guy and build up the rest of the team because the Cardinals purged a lot of their defense. They traded away Byron Murphy, Buda Baker. They were thinking of trading. They just couldn't find a partner for him.
He's a free agent.
Yeah, and now he's a free agent, so they'll lose him. Like you said, they traded away Hopkins' contract, and they are going to lose James Conner. So these are guys that are getting the biggest contracts on their team already gone. So Kyler Murray is really built with a lot of these younger players that are on rookie deals or smaller deals where they can make the rest of that draft stock work. They have 2 first-round picks this year. They have one from Houston, which was a better team than expected, so it's going to be a middle first-round pick. But they still have a lot of draft stock to be able to rebuild on that kind of thing. And also, you brought in an Eagles offensive mind. Why not have Kyler Murray try to become what Jalen Hurts was last year? Like, it's very possible to have that kind of thing happen.
He's better than Jalen Hurts. He is more accurate than Jalen Hurts. He could put up those numbers. He could throw 300 yards every single game if they give him weapons. This is a big problem. Justin Fields, how do we know what Justin Fields is? How do we know what Justin Fields could be if he never had weapons? DJ Moore is the first weapon they gave him. The first weapon. And Kmet is a good tight end. He looks like he's an elusive tight end, but that's the problem. You need game-changing wide receivers. They don't have one. And that's the problem right now with the Cardinals. They don't have any of them. So, and Marquise Brown, fine. Hollywood Brown, he's not Antonio Brown. He's not his cousin. I think that's his cousin.
Yeah, yep.
It's not Antonio Brown, even though he's out of his damn freaking mind. I mean, I don't know, maybe CTE, and maybe he just likes to put his head in places he shouldn't put his head. But nevertheless, I mean, maybe he's been hit by a bull or something like that, Antonio Brown, with his brain being all bushed around. But nevertheless, Kyler Murray is an efficient quarterback that could put up the numbers and still could be an elite quarterback in this league. Why would you part ways with a quarterback this good if you know that you have control of him for the next 2 to 3 years and you can invest your money in other positions that you need?
Right. Also look at the $40+ million a year quarterbacks too. Outside of the Giants, like there's no team that it has not a lot of talent on the rest of their roster. Like we were talking about the Bengals. They have talent on all the rest of their roster. The Chiefs, the Bills, all these teams that are paying their quarterbacks, Philly, they have talent on the rest of their roster where they could afford to be able to help out the quarterback in a different way and pay it. Kyler Murray is kind of stuck where they can't really do that kind of thing. And you're really going to sell short on trading him just so you could draft possibly Drake May, possibly Penix. There's no guarantee they even fall to them too. And what happens if you don't? What happens if it's desperate? Then you're trading more draft stock away for a situation that's really bad in general as it is. Like you said, they lost James. They're going to lose James Conner. Trey McBride's a nice young tight end, but that's really it. Marquise Brown can't stay healthy, and they don't have a great offensive line. So good luck.
SNY's Ian Begley reports that the Raptors guard, OG Anunoby, has been traded to the New York Knicks for RJ Barrett, Immanuel Quickley, and a second-round pick. The Knicks also received backup point guard Malachi Flynn and center Precious, by the way, a fantastic name, Precious Achiuwa. Anunoby is 26 years old and has a player option for next season for about $20 million before becoming a free agent in 2025. Yahoo Sports' Jake Fisher reports that Anunoby could be willing to take a discount to stay with the Knicks. Anunoby averaging 15.2 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, and 2.6 assists per game this season. In his career, Anunoby is averaging 11.9 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, 1.6 assists per game, and has been one of the better perimeter defenders in the NBA. By the way, last year, second team All-NBA defensive player. I will say this. When I heard about this trade, I was shocked. I was shocked because the Knicks gave away 2 pieces that they could have used for Donovan Mitchell, or I don't know, Karl Anthony Towns. But they have been going after OG Anunoby for the last 2 seasons. They have wanted OG Anunoby for years, maybe because he fits Thibodeau's offense or defense, whatever he wants to run, and maybe they can make him a better offensive player. Maybe they can run the offense through him when Randall is gone, just as much as they do it as maybe he's a second guy or a second option behind a guy like Jalen Brunson if they decide to move a Randall. I don't know. But here's the problem, and this is why I think the Knicks made this trade. Their defense in the last 2 weeks since Mitchell Robinson's injury has been absolutely disgusting. It's been horrible. In every single one of those games, they've given over 100 points. A team that was one of the top 3, top 4 defenses in the league when Mitchell Robinson was healthy. For all those people that said, get rid of Mitchell Robinson, trade Mitchell Robinson, now you see what Mitchell Robinson provides to that Knicks defense when he's in the lineup. And the problem is with the Knicks, their perimeter defense. Jalen Brunson is not a great defender. He's not. And we thought Quentin Grimes was going to be a great player. I don't know what's going on with him, but he's not developing. Immanuel Quickley started to develop, but his defense has gotten worse from last year. It's not the same defense. And RJ Barrett, I love RJ. I really, really love the kid. And I think he was developing into a really good player. But he was inconsistent. He was never consistent. He would start playing. Me and Josh were talking about this the other day. He gets healthy, he starts to play well, and then he gets hurt. And then he's out a significant amount of time. He comes back, and he's flat for almost 2, 3, 4 weeks. And he can't do anything. And then he falls out of the good graces of Tom Thibodeau, and then he's sitting there and he's riding the bench. This is a problem. OG Anunoby is going to go out there. He's going to play great defense. He's going to give you 110% on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to give you consistent 15, 17 points. He's going to give you a consistent 6 to 5 rebounds a game. He's going to steal the ball. He's going to put pressure on the best point guard or the best shooting guard on every other team, and he's going to make your defense look better than it is.
Yeah, when I first saw this trade, I was shocked too, because I really was thinking, okay, if the Knicks are going to trade both Barrett and Quickley in the same trade, it's going to have to be either for a top big man or for just a guy that you would think of as a general star player. And again, there were so many options available that maybe were less available than we realized because their teams are starting to play well, like Dallas, like Minnesota, guys that were rumored for in the offseason. But him wanting to take a discount with the Knicks once he hits free agency is encouraging, because that means that he's committed to the team brand of basketball.
He wants to be a Knick.
He clearly likes it here because he was tweeting a lot of things about New York when he first got traded over there. And it seems like he's embracing, even somebody like Tom Thibodeau is a hard coach to embrace. He's embracing that kind of mindset.
Because his mindset is defense, and Tom Thibodeau's mindset is defense. And if he could play all-out defense and give the Knicks something that the Knicks haven't had in a very long time, what has been the Knicks' problem over the last couple of years is finding a top-end perimeter defender. That's why they've been going after Anunoby for the last couple of years. The problem is at the time, the Raptors were still a borderline playoff team. And again, they're looking to rebuild now. So after they lost Van Fleet, he decided to part ways and leave and go to the Rockets. They knew that they were going to probably have to start to rebuild. They bring in RJ Barrett. He's a Toronto native. He's from that area. He's a Canadian. And Wiggins could probably, I've been hearing that they're interested in Wiggins. Maybe Toronto brings in Wiggins, Andrew Wiggins, another Toronto native. And maybe they're bringing some of their guys over there and trying to rebuild around those players. Right now, Siakam is the big name. And Siakam is another guy that the Knicks are interested in. Now, I don't know what the Knicks are going to trade. They do have a significant amount of first-round draft picks. I think next year, they have 4 or 5 second-round draft picks next year. And they just gave up one of them to a Raptor team that a lot of people thought they could have gotten a first-round draft pick. Because here's the thing. It was really RJ Barrett for OG. That's really what it was. It was OG Anunoby for RJ Barrett because Immanuel Quickley is going to leave next year. He is a free agent. He's going to want a big contract. He's not going to re-sign with Toronto. And honestly, if you look at what the Knicks got, Precious Achiuwa, he adds the defensive side of the ball that the Knicks have missed since they lost Mitchell Robinson. So they're getting a big man that can play defense. He's a good inside on the block defender. And then they add a Malachi Flynn, who's a good backup point guard. So he's not an elite backup point guard, but he's a good backup point guard until the Knicks decide what they're going to do at the trade deadline. Are they going to add another big name, another guard, a.k.a. Donovan Mitchell, which a lot of people after the trade said that Donovan Mitchell was going to reach out to Cleveland and say that he wants out of Cleveland, but then you're hearing Miami's interested in him. Now you're hearing the Nets are interested in him. All in all, we all know where he wants to be. He wants to be in Madison Square Garden. He wants to play with Jalen Brunson. He wants to play with this team. He grew up a Knicks fan. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I believe this was set up. This move was set up to add another player that they're going to move forward with at the trade deadline that could change their roster for better.
Right, especially if he does take a pay cut, too. That's going to help if he doesn't have to get that third max contract.
They saved $10 million trading RJ Barrett. And that's why they signed McBride after that. Right. They gave McBride $13 million after trading RJ Barrett because they want their second team to be all defense. Hart, McBride. You could put OG out there on the second
Flynn
team.
Was a good perimeter
Flynn, you have a good secondary defensive roster. And then if Mitchell Robinson somehow comes back in the playoffs, which I believe he will, if the Knicks go far in the playoffs, if they go to the Eastern Conference Finals or they go into the semis, I could see, remember, he had ankle surgery. It was a significant ankle injury, they said. Usually it's like 5 to 6 weeks with an ankle surgery that he got, but they went in there. It was a lot more problems with the ankle. But you're talking about if the Knicks are in the Eastern Conference Finals or they're in the semis, that's a significant amount of time. That's like 3-4 months down the road. Maybe a guy like Mitchell Robinson will be ready. And then you have an additional defensive weapon that you didn't have for the whole second half of the season.
Right. And it may also say that maybe the trade market is going to be difficult as a whole this year too, because yes, Donovan Mitchell is going to be linked to the Knicks for the end of time, but the Cavs also said they're not going to just do it for nothing either. And that maybe that means they're not going to do it this year.
You like that bark?
Yes.
But I don't like you barking.
I'm not going to.
You do have a dark, dog bark.
Thank you.
It's very dark.
All right. You can submit that in some dog barking human contest.
Well,
I don't know.
Your dog likes to lick your butt.
Yeah, he does, unfortunately. But
there you go. How many times has he done it in the past year?
None, luckily.
Oh, why is it luckily? You liked it.
No, I didn't.
You were startled.
Yeah, startled.
Yeah, what startled means you felt good.
No.
You didn't like it? You didn't like a tongue over there?
No.
You sure?
No.
It was clean. He cleaned it. I'm just saying.
But going back to the trade market too, it might be dwindling to the fact of right now the biggest names available are Siakam, who's a nice player, very well-rounded player. If the Knicks trade for him at the deadline, I would not mind it at all. Somebody like Dejounte Murray, who was the other big name, another nice player.
They're saying that, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't really fit for the Knicks. The Knicks have Jalen Brunson already. He's going to be another point guard, and he's a bigger point guard, so maybe he could play the 2, I guess, but still the fit is not ideal for somebody of his skill set. Those are the biggest names in the trade deadline. Zach LaVine's now still hurt and might miss the rest of the season, so it looks like nobody's going to trade
How about
for him
Siakam?
anymore. Yeah, Siakam, I would embrace it because he's a well-rounded player. If the Knicks traded for him, they could give him.
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
You bring Siakam with Jalen Brunson, and you will have to probably trade Julius Randle.
You're going to have to, yeah.
You're definitely going to have to. But if you bring in Siakam, he gives you the rebound, he gives you the defense, he gives you the offense. You have a 1-2 punch with Jalen Brunson. You have OG. You can absolutely win a championship with that roster. Absolutely. And you might have some money sitting back, if OG takes less, where you can bring in another $15, $17 million player to play with all the other guys.
Right. And especially if it's Siakam too. You have to imagine Anunoby's going to take a pay cut to do that too. If the Knicks trade for Siakam and then they sign him in the offseason, now they're saying that Siakam is going to test the waters, fine. But if Anunoby knows that the Knicks are going to push hard to do everything they can to bring back Siakam, because remember, the team that you're originally with has the first leeway in free agency. They can give you the extra year that the other teams can't give. So if that's what Siakam, a younger player, is going to want, then that helps Siakam's chances of going back to the Knicks, and also helps Anunoby's chance of taking less money where he's not going to get a max contract. That gives plenty of leeway to sign Donovan Mitchell. That gives plenty of leeway to sign another free agent that could become available.
It's inevitable that Donovan Mitchell will be a New York Knick.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's going to be. It could be at the trade deadline. It could be in the offseason, but it's inevitable. I do. The only way he goes anywhere is Miami. That would only make sense because he goes with Pat Riley.
Right.
He can win with Jimmy Butler. That team is built to win now, and I think he'd go to Miami for the fact that he can win a championship. Besides Miami, he does not want to play for Brooklyn. I don't care what Brooklyn says. He will not play in Brooklyn. He doesn't have a chance to win in Brooklyn, and I think he knows that. He would either go to the Knicks or go to Miami, or if there's a surprise team that comes out of nowhere, like OKC, because OKC has a ton of draft stock. If you bring Mitchell Robinson over there with OKC, with that young group of talent that they have over there, you can win a championship right now. You could. So I still think Donovan Mitchell is a long shot for the Knicks right now. But I still think that if Donovan Mitchell forces his way out and he wants to play somewhere, it would make a lot of sense on where he wants to play.
Yeah, and I also look at Anunoby as the potential guy that could definitely lure in other players too if he does take less when it comes to getting players in quantity as well. It gives him a lot more leeway now that they have cheaper size to work with. That's why I like the Achiuwa end of the trade too. Like that gives him a guy that can play a 4 and a 5. Robinson, if he does come back, is still a cheap center, and they could build the rest of the way with still enough good wings.
All right, when we come back, we will be talking to the Just Jets podcast and the Talkin Jets show. Our friend Matt O'Leary here on the Sports Loudmouth.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
We are back. Happy New Year to all the fans out there. A Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. Speedy, I don't know what you celebrate. As you know, you're speaking and you're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week. As you know, the Sports Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out all our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. You can call us at 631-672-3108. And I obviously interviewed this guy a couple of weeks ago on another podcast, and he's on our show, our live show. I wanted to get him on the show. He has a great, fantastic podcast on YouTube, one of the best Jet guys in the country. We're now talking to the host of Just Jets podcast and Talking Jets show, Matt O'Leary. Matt, what's up, bud?
Not too much. Excited to be on with you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And as you know, Matt is a Jet guy. He's also an Islander fan. And we're not going to get into any Islanders hockey right now, even though they're playing pretty good hockey. I have to say that. That game against Colorado was interesting. It was an interesting showing for the New York Islanders. They have to keep the goal scoring down, but we're not going to get into the Islanders. Let's get into the Jets. Going into the season, everybody thought that Aaron Rodgers was going to change everything for the New York Jets. He carries the flag out, the lights shining on Monday Night Football. He goes down after 4 plays. The Jets then decide to go with Zach Wilson, and the debacle started to happen. After Aaron Rodgers went down, what were your thoughts to the New York Jets season, all the way from what we saw on Hard Knocks when we thought the Jets had a chance to possibly win a Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, really frustrating to see, a season go down the drain like that 4 plays into your season. And, with that all being said, I thought this team was still talented enough with how good they are defensively and with young guys like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and Elijah Vera Tucker before he got hurt on the offensive side of the ball that they should have been more competitive than this. But I think the biggest thing for me is Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh. I think they acted as, that they were safe no matter what happened this year. And I don't think they were aggressive enough to get another quarterback and to add on the offensive line once people, started to go down with injuries. So I really think the offensive line and poor quarterback play ended up really derailing this season.
So realistically, for Aaron Rodgers coming back next year, what do you think the expectation should be for his performances coming off that Achilles injury?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the tough thing, right? Like at his age now, 40 years old, coming off of that injury. I guess if you were to put any positive spin on it, it happened early enough in the season where he's going to have that extra long recovery. It's not like it happens, towards the end of the season around now or the playoffs. So I think he will be pretty close to 100% after, it's all said and done going into next year. I think you can still expect a guy who's playing like a top 10 quarterback. I know he played through an injury last year in Green Bay with a thumb, and he didn't have his best statistical season. I don't think it's fair to expect him to have like the MVP numbers from 2020 and 21, but I don't know, split the difference between the two where he was his final year in Green Bay and his MVP seasons.
Matt, you look at Zach Wilson, he looks like he's on his way out. The Jets are not going to bring him back in the offseason. And you look at Joe Flacco, what he's doing right now for the Browns. They're going into the playoffs hot. They had Joe Flacco on their roster. He was obviously traded for a 6th-round draft pick. And you would think that backing up Aaron Rodgers, you have 2 capable quarterbacks that can get you into the playoffs. And then you decided to bring in Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson just completely, I guess, did what Zach Wilson does, absolutely bomb everything. And this team going into the offseason, this is, I believe, the most important thing besides the offensive line is finding a competent backup quarterback to back up Aaron Rodgers, because if they don't, they're going to have major problems if Aaron Rodgers goes down again. So if you were the GM for the New York Jets right now, and who's available this offseason, who do you bring in as your backup quarterback right behind Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think you bring in a great point because you can't just be right back to where you were this year. The guy that I really like is Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he's someone who has a starting experience. He filled in for the Browns last year when Deshaun Watson was out, and I thought he played relatively good football. And he's backed up Sam Howell. And, in the little we've seen him this year and against the Jets, I thought he looked really good. And I think, with where the Commanders are going to end up picking, they're probably going to get a new quarterback in there, and I don't think he's going to have a chance to start. And not that he'll necessarily have a chance to start here, but, a guy in his, late 30s, early 40s now in Aaron Rodgers coming back off an injury, he might have to play. So maybe he looks at that as a exciting opportunity to, back up a legend in Aaron Rodgers. And that's certainly someone who I think is proven that they are capable at this level. I don't want to go in with either a young rookie or try to run it back with Zach Wilson for a 4th year. I think you got to find some vet backup.
So Devontae Adams has been a big name that was brought up. The Jets were apparently close to trading for him at the trade deadline, but the Raiders didn't want to do it for selling short. They just fired Josh McDaniels after that. But there's only going to be links with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Do you think it makes sense for the Jets to do it? One, and two, how realistic do you think it's going to be to happen?
Yeah, I think, when there's smoke, there's fire with something like this. I mean, you're going to have the Aaron Rodgers connection. The Jets have leaked it a couple times this year. Like after the trade deadline, it was, they checked in on Devontae Adams and they were close to landing him. And then it was a few weeks later, they're going to pursue him tough again. So I think there's some legitimacy to that one, whether it's Adams or signing a veteran free agent wide receiver. I think it's obvious they need to add someone to pair with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's a legitimate number one, but they need that 1B or that solid number 2 receiver. I think they were hoping Allen Lazard would be that, and he's been a swing and a miss so far as a free agent addition. And unfortunately, Corey Davis retiring before the start of the season really didn't help things. So I think wide receiver is absolutely a position that they're going to look to attack. And with someone who has the familiarity with both Rodgers and Hackett, I think Devontae is a name to watch closely this offseason.
We are talking to the host of the Just Jets podcast and the Talkin Jets show, Matt O'Leary. He's all over YouTube. He's very well known when it comes to the New York Jets. And Matt, the offensive line has been putrid all season long. And they have had more injuries over the last 2 years on their offensive line than any team in football. And if you look at their offensive line right now, you have Tippmann, who I think has been sensational. He's been the only bright spot with that offensive line. Elijah Vera-Tucker, who, if he stays healthy, he's a dominant force. And everybody else, Lincoln Tomlinson, he needs to go. Mekhi Becton was embarrassed last week, absolutely embarrassed. And they have no guard play. Max Mitchell looked like he was going to be a player last year. And then, obviously, with the blood clots, he hasn't had the same season he had last year. Where did the Jets go in the offseason to fix this offensive line that's just absolutely putrid?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think you're either looking for 2 new tackles or you're moving Elijah Vera-Tucker from guard to tackle and looking for a tackle and a guard. But at an absolute minimum, you're looking for 2 new starters. If you're moving on from Laken Tomlinson, then it's 3 new starters, which that's going to be a mix of free agency, potentially a trade, and the draft. I know we like to talk about, maybe the Jets will go with a wide receiver or a quarterback in the first round. To me, I think they're going to find an offensive lineman. I'd be very, very surprised if they went a different direction than offensive line. Even if they don't land one of the top 2 guys at the draft, Fashanu from Penn State or Alt from Notre Dame. There's a couple of guys, beyond that who are going to go in the first round as well. So if I had to bet on it, I think they're going to add an offensive tackle in the first round of the draft.
So the announcement was made last week that everyone is returning: Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett.
Please.
And there's a lot of mixed reactions from Jets fans based on all of that. Where do you stand?
Yeah, it's I don't know what my confidence level in those guys being the 2 to get it right. I'm hoping that, Aaron Rodgers plays like an elite quarterback and it hides some of the issues. But I mean, I think you have legitimate criticisms for both those guys. Robert Saleh's done a really nice job with the defense, but game management is still an issue for him in year 3. The offense is still one of the worst in the league. And for Douglas, I mean, I think a lot of this season, you can blame on him for not doing enough on the offensive line or at the backup quarterback spot for the position that they are in now. So I think both those guys probably should have been fired at the end of this year. I would have been absolutely okay with moving on, especially Hackett. I mean, the only reason Hackett's here is because he's friends with Aaron Rodgers, but they're going to run it back. And I just hope that, Hall of Fame quarterback helps hide some of those issues.
And you speak about Robert Saleh, and all year around, he goes up, he speaks to the press, and he just sits there. He just stands there, answers every question, and pretty much says, "Oh, it's okay. We're going to go out there. We're going to play hard. We're all out there together. We're going to play like a team. We're Jets. We're going to play like the team. All gas, no break, whatever the hell he says." And then a week ago, he goes out there, the press, after getting humiliated by the Miami Dolphins, absolutely humiliated by the Miami Dolphins, 30-0. And he goes out there and he has nothing to say. And then the press comes out. I don't remember who said it. And he says, "What do you want me to do? You want me to throw something? You want me to throw something on the ground to show you how angry I am? Or you just want me to be me and try to be the coach and try to help this team move forward, for the next year or however long I'm here?" It's been a big problem for Robert Saleh. Emotion has been the neglect that he had when he was over there in San Francisco. He had emotion. He was out there. He as a defensive coordinator, you could see the anger and frustration, how his face turned red. Now all of a sudden he grows a beard. He's a pretty boy on the sidelines for the New York Jets, and he has nothing to say to the press after the games. What are your thoughts as a Jet guy, as a Jet fan, on the, to me, his reaction of just absolute appalling play for the New York Jets?
Yeah, I think that's fair to bring up. And when things are going well, you see him reacting positively on the sideline, but you never see that big negative reaction, at least to the players. We've seen him get into it with the referees, but he never really goes after, players on the sideline or has a big negative emotion that way. And, for me personally, I would like to see that from him. I think someone who has done a really good job is Dan Campbell in Detroit. I think he's someone who obviously is a player's coach, and Saleh is as well. It's obvious that guys like playing for him, but I just think he needs a little bit more of that fire, especially when things are going wrong. It's great that he's the biggest cheerleader when things are going, great and things are working. That's awesome. But also at the same time, like it's okay to show a little bit of frustration too.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always noticed with this Jets coaching staff since Saleh has taken over as the head coach is sometimes they're too stubborn when it comes to making adjustments. I had that issue with Mike LaFleur last year, and I think that's why he got fired. And now you're seeing it this year, too, with Nathaniel Hackett trying to change the offense since Aaron Rodgers went gone, and he doesn't run the ball. He doesn't do a lot of the things that they should be doing. And then the same kind of thing with Saleh on the defense. Do you feel that same kind of thing?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think the stubbornness is a huge issue for both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. I think some of, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, them pretty much not moving Sauce Gardner over to the other team's elite number one receiver really cost them against Miami a couple weeks ago, where Tyreek Hill was out and it was pretty much only Jalen Waddle, and they let DJ Reed get, burned by him. And Reed's been great this year. I don't want to come on here and bash DJ Reed. He's played really, really well, but in that circumstance, why not move your elite cornerback over there and put him with some help over the top? But for whatever reason, they just love to do things their way, and they believe that it's going to work, and they just got to get the process right. But, here we are 3 years later, and it's the same thing.
We are talking to the host of the Just Jets podcast and the Talking Jets show, Matt O'Leary. Matt, defensively, Quincy Williams has been fantastic. To me, an all-pro player this year. He's been one of the best linebackers in the league. Quentin Williams, I know it took him a while to figure things out this year. He got a big contract. He missed, some time in the offseason, but in the second half, he's played better. And to me, a very important piece to this defense is the linebacker play. And we all know the captain of that defense. What were your thoughts to the secondary this year in the second half of the season, especially in the fourth quarter where, hey, listen, I'm not saying the Jets secondary hasn't been one of the elite defenses in all of football, but it looked like they were lackadaisical in the fourth quarter of games because maybe they were tired and maybe they just knew they were going to lose and they just gave up on certain plays. Did you see that the way I saw it in the last couple of games?
I definitely think that's a fair point to bring up with, this defense. I think for a majority of the year, they've done a good job of keeping them in games, and they've lost a lot of close, low-scoring games this year. The first game against New England comes to mind, Atlanta, Vegas, games like that. But there are a few examples this year of them, getting blown out, Cleveland, Miami, Buffalo. And I think at times they try to be maybe a little bit over aggressive to try to make a big play and either punch the ball out or try to jump a route and get an interception. That's when a big play happens. Specifically in the secondary, I think I have the biggest issue with the safeties. I don't think either has tackled very well. So if there was an area of concern, with tackling or effort wise, I would say maybe a little bit more with the safety duo than the corner room or linebackers.
So a lot of these fringe roster players that are either free agents or have big contracts at the end of the year or after the season, which ones would you keep realistically, and which ones do you think the Jets will get rid of?
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest one right now, I think that people are talking about is Bryce Huff, right? Like he's due a new contract. I would do whatever it takes to keep Bryce Huff here. I think he's, been stellar as a pass rusher this year. Finally gets more playing time. That's been someone that Jet fans have wanted to see more of, for years now. And finally the snaps start to be there, and he has a chance to be a double-digit sack guy this year. I know that their strength is the defense and they need help on the offensive side of the ball, but I think you could still find a way to retain one of your homegrown, home-developed guys. Beyond that, I mean, like Jordan Whitehead's a free agent. I don't know if you're necessarily bringing him back. You might be able to, retain an Ashton Davis or a Chuck Clark, someone who actually didn't play for you this year, but you traded for, and he was hurt. But, for me, the big one that I want to retain is Huff. Beyond that, you're kind of just trying to keep as much of the defense together. Offensively, I don't know if you're looking to bring back like Randall Cobb's a pending free agent. I don't think you're running to bring him back. Billy Turner, that a lot of those guys could just walk.
As everybody knows, we are talking to the host of the Just Jets podcast and the Talking Jets show, Matt O'Leary. Shout out to all the fans. I know everybody says that they can't hear Matt. Our Podbean went down. And obviously, if you guys want to listen to Matt's interview, we're on YouTube, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Just look it up. We're live right now, so you can hear Matt. You can see Matt because for some reason, I don't know what's going on with Podbean right now. Maybe because it's a new year, there was a 404 error, something like that. So we will be up live again tomorrow on the stream. So we had the restream. So you can actually still listen to the show, but for some reason they can't hear the interview. So you can go on YouTube, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And I'm sure Matt has it posted too, so you can check him out as well. Matt, you look at the Jets now this offseason. We were just mentioning Davante Adams, and he's a guy that the Jets are definitely going to be interested in the offseason, but also going into this year's draft. And the one thing I could say about Joe Douglas, he's drafted very, very well the last 2 seasons. I don't understand the Will McDonald thing, but again, the Jets did that same thing to Johnson last year, and then this year he's had a lot of time, and he's shown that he could be an elite player in the future. Where do you see, besides the offensive line help that they need in the draft, where do you see, they don't have a second-round draft pick, but where do you see the Jets going? Are they going offense this year or defense when it comes to this year's draft in your eyes?
Yeah, I think it'll lean more offense because even if you add a bigger name wide receiver, let's say as a wide receiver too, they could still use some depth. So it wouldn't surprise me if they added a mid-round receiver in there. They just released Dalvin Cook, so running back could potentially be a need. Like I liked what we've seen from Izzy Abanikanda, and I wish we got to see a little bit more, but it's not a guarantee that he's an RB2 in this league. So that they might look to add another one there. Maybe you take a developmental quarterback that you want to sit and stash. So I would think that they would lean heavily on the offensive side. If they were to go anywhere on defense, my guess it would be interior defensive line. Behind Quinnen Williams, you have a couple guys in Quentin Jefferson and Al Woods who are pending free agents. So adding some depth at that spot on the interior of the defensive line is something that I could see them doing as well.
So what about some under the radar moves you think would be beneficial for the Jets that maybe guys aren't talking about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And someone that I just mentioned was Quentin Jefferson. And I think retaining him would be a sneaky important thing for this team because I think the run defense has gotten a little bit worse since he's been out, both him and Al Woods, to be honest with you. But Jefferson was getting a lot of pressure from the interior of that defensive line. And I think it was opening up Quinnen Williams and some of these edge guys to get more sacks, but the sack numbers haven't been there as much for this defense over the last few weeks. I would think an under the radar one would be bringing him back. And then, maybe something on the offensive side of the ball, looking to add another slot guy in here. Xavier Gibson, I think is an exciting piece. I don't know if I would trust him as a starting slot receiver unless they want to get Garrett Wilson in the slot more and maybe add another outside guy. Then you kind of just do the inverse of that. But it wouldn't surprise me if they added, another gadget kind of player.
Matt, you look at the AFC East, the Dolphins and the Bills, they're fighting for that number 1 spot to win the division. They're going into week 18 where whoever wins this game is going to win the division. And maybe, obviously, if the Bills lose this game, they could be out of the playoffs. So this is a big game for the Bills. The Dolphins, obviously, they clinch. They're going to play in the wild card game no matter what. When you watch the Bills play, especially in the second half, they changed the offensive coordinator. What has stood out to you in the second half, what you didn't see in the first half by the Bills?
Yeah, I think their offensive creativity has been much better. I think that was a big issue for them early on in the year. They were asking Josh Allen to do a little bit too much. He was trying to play hero ball, and there were a lot of turnovers and a lot of mistakes early on in the year. But right now, they're getting hot at the right time. It's clicking. I think their offense has looked significantly better since going to Joe Brady. And honestly, I like them a lot this week. They beat up on Miami the first time these two teams played. And Miami, they had a big win against Dallas, but they looked terrible against Baltimore. And I get it. This game's in Miami, and maybe it's a little bit different this time around. It's home game for them, but I just think Buffalo is the hot team, and they've looked better the last few weeks. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Buffalo gets this win on Sunday.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying now they're like a top 4 odds wise to win the Super Bowl.
I
this
agree.
year as a potentially as a wild card team. Now they might win the division, like you said, a 2 but if they are end up being a wild card team, do you still think they could be just as tough of an out as if they would be if they won the division? Because we haven't seen a wild card team in the Super Bowl in a while.
Yeah, you definitely haven't. And obviously, home playoff game, a little bit of easier path, but I think they're dangerous, even if they are, a wild card team. We've seen like the Chiefs who are going to win a division, but they haven't played their best football. So it wouldn't shock me at all if, the Buffalo Bills go in as a wild card and make a little run.
As everybody knows, we are talking to the host of the Just Jets podcast and the Talking Jets show, Matt O'Leary. It's like a tongue twister. But anyways, before we let you go, Matt, who do you have coming out of the AFC? Do you believe the Baltimore Ravens are the team to beat right now? I mean, they've looked good the last 2 weeks. They knocked off San Francisco. This week, they really showed up and put a beating on all the teams they've played all season long. And really, everybody thought that San Francisco going into the season was the straight up contender to win a championship. I think it's really transitioned right into Baltimore, especially 2 weeks ago. Do you think Baltimore is the team to beat in the AFC? And do you think San Francisco is going to come out of the NFC?
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think Baltimore right now, they look like the best team in the sport until proven otherwise. So I do think they deserve that crown as the team to beat. Obviously, the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, they're the name recognition, but they haven't been as good this year. Something seems a little off with them. And the Eagles, who went to the Super Bowl last year and started off the year so hot, they've really limped down the stretch here as well, and they might not win their division. So I think the 49ers are a legit threat to come out of the NFC. They're my preseason NFC champion prediction. So that one looks good. The Bengals one doesn't look so hot right now. Wasn't expecting Joe Burrow to get hurt. But yeah, that other AFC North team, man, Baltimore, they're playing their best football. Lamar looks like an MVP candidate. So yeah, to me, they are by far the favorites.
They're definitely Lamar is definitely winning the MVP after what he did this past week. 4 touchdowns. 300 yards. I mean, putting up those kind of numbers against a Super Bowl contender only tells you what Lamar Jackson could do. And by the way, there was a lot of questions if Lamar was the MVP going into this game. There's no question anymore. And again, I had Jacksonville and the Eagles going to the Super Bowl before the season started. I don't see the Eagles making the Super Bowl the way they played, and now they're losing the locker room. This could get really, really bad for the Eagles, and we all know this because this has gone on for the Jets for years when it comes to the locker room. So if you're hearing from different players saying that the locker room, the team is losing each other in the locker room, there's a problem of even the coach is losing the team right now, Nick Sirianni, and that has a lot to do with the coaching staff. Now that Gannon's right now with the Arizona Cardinals, and obviously the Indianapolis Colts is having a great season. They could sneak into the playoffs. So you're absolutely right. It is crazy the way the NFL works. In any given year, anything could happen. And as a matter of fact, even though we think it's Baltimore and San Francisco in the Super Bowl, some team could sneak up and surprise everyone and go to the Super Bowl, get hot. Even the Colts. I mean, they're 9-7. They get into the playoffs. They sneak into the playoffs. They could be dangerous. So anything's possible, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a local team, we saw the Giants do it a couple of times, right? They get in on the last day of the year and go on a run to make the Super Bowl. So,
don't mention that, please.
I know it hurts to mention, but it's true. If you get hot at the right time, that's all that matters.
Also, thanks to your New York Jets in Week 16 that year, 2011.
Why do you have to bring that up? I was there. Yeah. I was there when the Giants beat Victor Cruz. Remember that? Oh my God, I was sick to my stomach. I'll never forget it. It was Christmas Eve. Me and my friends, we were having a good time. The Jets had a lead, and I was like, yes, we're going to make the playoffs. We can make a run. And then Victor Cruz has that run. I don't want to hear it. And then the game just completely changed, and the Jets don't make the playoffs, and the Giants go all the way to the Super Bowl and knock off, yes, the New England Patriots once again. So thank you for reminding me, Speedy, because you're a Giant fan, and I want to smack you around a couple of times. Maybe I need to hold you down and let your dog do a number on you.
My dog actually was not in my household when the Giants won that Super Bowl. We didn't get him until 2014, and the Giants have not made they made the playoffs, but they've only won one playoff game since then.
Well, Matt doesn't know the inside joke with that.
And I don't want Matt to know the inside joke about that. I'm sure he's already weirded out enough.
That is quite okay. Whatever you do with your dog at home is your dog.
Let's just say Errol has taken it to different proportions that I was not thinking of at the time, and has driven our other guests, a lot crazy.
That's amazing.
Crazy. It's funny. It is funny. You're the one who admitted it on live radio. I didn't say it. I said, "Is there anything?"
Why would you have any context to admit?
Because it's funny. I mean, who comes out and says, "Hey, you know what? My dog snuck into my room, and
I know Matt's probably heard too much.
I didn't say it. Matt, keep up the good work. You're the best, man. You really are. When it comes to the New York Jets, and you put out the best content. I really do believe that. And you do a great job. For all the fans out there, if you haven't checked it out, the Just Jets podcast and the Talkin Jets show. And by the way, he speaks a lot about the New York Islanders. He's got his take on the New York Islanders as well. So if you're an Islander fan, reach out to Matt. He is as great and as good as it gets. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks again for having me. Have a good rest of your night.
Matt O'Leary, and it's like a tongue twister. It's just like today. It's just been. Speedy, you like tongue twisters, right?
Sometimes.
Well, you like your dog tongue twister.
No, I didn't.
Well, what did you like? I mean, you spoke very highly of it.
I did not speak very highly of it.
Well, what did you speak?
I spoke about it in the scenario that it happened. There was no like or dislike. All I said was I was startled.
I would be startled too. I mean, I would have jumped and I would have said, "Get your tongue away from me over there." But for some reason, you've enjoyed it.
No, I did not enjoy it.
Oh, I don't know, man. You're starting to lose me here. Anyways, what were your thoughts to some of the games this past week?
Well, again, you're right about the Ravens. They're definitely blowing out everybody now. And
that defense is fantastic.
Yeah, and you look at the Ravens against good teams. Now that's their fourth double-digit win against good teams. Like they have to be thought of now as this obvious favorite in the AFC, and whether it is the whole conference or not with the 49ers, but again, still, they are doing it in dominant fashion and so many different ways too. Like we were talking about earlier, so many injuries that they've had to overcome. That's been the theme of this year. I think offensive teams that can overcome those injuries are the teams that are the most successful.
You see the difference of this team when they're not at 100% healthy. I'm talking about Miami. They are not healthy. Mostert is not healthy. He didn't play in the game. That's a big loss right now. And by the way, Waddle's not 100% healthy. Tyreek Hill has not been 100% healthy. And you're going into the playoffs. And like I said, you're crawling into the playoffs. You cannot not be healthy going in. Now, every team is not healthy going into the playoffs. Right. You're not at 100%. But if these guys are limping into the playoffs, you have a big problem. Your strength is your offense, your defensive side of the ball. Howard's been out practically all season long. He's been in, he's been out, he's been in, he's been out. You have Ramsey back, and he's definitely helped out the secondary. But if you're not strong on that side of the ball, you offensively, you have to show up every single week. And as we saw against a Ravens team, which are not known for their offense, by the way, guys, the Ravens have not scored 50 points on any team all season long at all. They go into Baltimore against a Miami Dolphin team that's put up 70 points against the Denver Broncos. Yes, 70 points against the Denver Broncos. And they gave up 56 points against a Ravens team. By the way, and Lamar Jackson needed to prove himself on national television. I think he proved himself. I think he is the MVP of the league. I don't think you can argue it's Purdy or McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill. You can't really argue that anymore. Even Dak Prescott at one point, And Dak had a very good week against the Lions.
345 yards.
Yeah, he looked really good. And I asked the Beeve, I asked him, what did he think about Dak? He says, Dak played well. He played well. He just played well. He played sensational. He outplayed Jared Goff.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, Jared Goff at one point this year was an MVP candidate. And now all of a sudden, he played well. They shouldn't have won that game. But it wasn't because if they didn't win that game, it wasn't because of Dak Prescott. But I know the Beef, he would have thrown Dak Prescott under the bus and said, it was Dak's fault. He stinks. So that's the Beef, by the way.
That's a Beef in a nutshell. The most credit he'll give to Dak Prescott is he played well. Yeah, okay. No, he threw for 345 yards. Look at how many quarterbacks threw for 300 yards this week.
I will say this. The Ravens are really unstoppable right now, but that doesn't mean anything. They're 13-3. They're probably not going to play any of their starters in week 18. They won the conference. They're going to have the bye. They're going to have home field advantage. Kansas City, for the first time in a very long time, are not going to have the bye, and they're not going to have home field advantage. So Kansas City is sneaking into the playoffs, and if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, there's no guarantees Kansas City gets out of the wild card game. Honestly, because
they play the Bills.
Yeah, I think they're put in a really bad position. And if the Bills do win the division, they're matched up against the Bills. So you got to go to Buffalo. You're not going to be playing in Kansas City. I don't think you played a Kansas City game in the playoffs at all.
I think the only shootout game was in Kansas City. Buffalo has never been the one seed in the
No,
AFC.
I'm saying that the Kansas City fans might not see a home game for the rest of the playoffs.
Most likely not. They're going to get the one in the first round, whoever they play. That's it. Everything else is, especially with the way the AFC.
Well, if Buffalo wins, they don't play Kansas City in the first round.
Right, that Miami would play Kansas City in the first round, most likely, and that's going to be hard too.
I think if Miami is 100% healthy, they can beat Kansas City.
Oh yeah. For sure.
So, and
their defense is not playing well besides the Ravens game.
Yeah, and Kansas City could put up the numbers. I'm not Kansas City. Miami could put up the numbers, and we know they can compete. Tua's been very accurate. At one point this year, Tua was an MVP candidate. I think in the first 7-8 weeks, we were arguing that he was the best quarterback in the league. It's kind of fallen off, maybe because of injury. Tua's been healthy all season long. I have to give him a lot of credit. After what happened to him last year with the concussion problems, Miami's protecting him very, very well this year. I definitely want to watch the Hard Knocks. I'm going to wait until Hard Knocks is completely over because I want to get a chance to watch Mike McDaniels. I think he's a fantastic personality, and I think he'd be great to watch. I just haven't had a chance to watch. I don't like watching episode and then have to wait a week and then watch another episode. I want to watch it just like straight through. That's what I like to do when it comes to that. I hate waiting a certain amount of time. But nevertheless, the surprises of the week was the way the Ravens completely pulverized the Dolphins. The Colts knocking off the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders were playing good football, and they were borderline maybe going to sneak into the playoffs. Now they're done. There's no way they're making the playoffs. I said this. I don't know. And I like Antonio Pierce, and I think he's done a great job with the Raiders. I don't know what Davis does in the offseason when it comes to the coach position, because Antonio Pierce has won the team over. They believe in him as a head coach. And I believe that for the first time, and I'll say this about the Raiders, for the first time, I think the Raiders should give Antonio Pierce a full season to coach this team. Because maybe in a full year, a full off season with Antonio Pierce building this defense, Mason Crosby's had a sensational year. He's going to be up for Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe with a good off season with Antonio Pierce, he can change the value of what this team has given over the last couple of years under Josh McDaniels.
Right. The Raiders have always looked for flash and they've never gotten it. And the problem is you need to build a level of culture that has to be stabilized. And we've seen many previously dysfunctional teams begin to do that. And now you're seeing it with a team like the Bills that were dysfunctional for a while. Now have a stable 7 years recently. Miami, they were the East Coast version of the Raiders. They were always spending for these big free agents, these big name coaches, and they were always just very mediocre. Now they're actually a good football system going. You're only going to gain that reputation from NFL players when you get that reputation. And Antonio Pierce has definitely done that. A lot of the players like him, even the players that were disgruntled before, a lot of them liked him too. So I hope he does get a chance.
Michael Strahan says speaks highly of him and says a lot of good things about him on and off the field and even in the locker room that everybody drives to him. So I think that Antonio Pierce gives them that personality that I think the Raiders have lacked over the last couple of years with the coaches that they had over there. And that's something that Davis needs to figure out, because having the right coach there, since John Gruden, this team has not really had a personality in the locker room. I think Antonio Pierce gives it, unless they could get Jim Harbaugh. And if Jim Harbaugh wins the national championship or loses in the national championship, if he loses in the national championship, there's no way he's coming back to Michigan. No way. If he wins, there could be a chance that he goes back to Michigan for at least another season to win back-to-back championships with the recruiting class that he's going to be bringing in next year. So I don't know where it's going, how it's going at work, but I'll tell you this right now. Davis has been an owner that really looks for that big slam dunk move, and Josh McDaniels was a surprise when they brought Josh McDaniels in. I think he's looking for that big name coach, and there's two big names that are going to be available in the offseason. Bill Belichick, who's obviously Josh McDaniels. I don't know why he would bring him in, because he's Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels is a disciple of Bill Belichick, so that doesn't make any sense. And Jim Harbaugh will be available, and teams are going to interview for him and try to reach out to him. Is that going to Deion Sanders is another name that we've been hearing over the last couple of weeks.
Oh boy, that'd be classic Raiders.
Which makes no sense either. And Deion already came out and said he doesn't want to coach a professional football team. He doesn't want to coach men. He wants to coach boys. So it doesn't make, first of all, it doesn't sound right.
No, it also just doesn't sound like the Raiders something that they would do.
I mean, I don't want to coach men. I want to coach boys. Young men.
Yeah, you're going to be losing a lot of top young men if I just say that.
I'm just kidding, Deion. But honestly, when you look at the big picture and what the Raiders like to do, they want to get the slam dunk. They want to get the big name. And it hasn't worked over the years. Maybe looking at Antonio Pierce, maybe that makes more sense to the organization. Maybe it helps them win next year. Could you imagine and I'm not saying Derek Carr's had a great season, because he hasn't.
No.
He's been an absolute waste of space for the Saints. But maybe if Derek Carr is there with Devontae Adams and with the team that they have and Antonio Pierce, maybe this team's a different team this year. Maybe it's a different roster this year if Derek Carr is there with Devontae Adams. Maybe the numbers would show that they're a contender this year, or a playoff contender at least. So Josh McDaniels, everywhere he goes, he ruins everything, as we all know. And again, Josh McDaniels could be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers next year.
Oh, God.
Bill Belichick heads over there with Justin Herbert. My prediction, ladies and gentlemen.
One can only hope that'll fix
prediction, ladies and gentlemen.
Josh McDaniels' career, because it's clearly not working for the great Kellen Moore.
That's a turkey, baby. That is a turkey. Not
2
a
months
gobble.
after Thanksgiving.
Could you do that?
No.
Oh, that's horrible. You gotta add some tongue to it, like your dog. Use your tongue like your dog, Well,
oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, you gotta wag it, wag it.
I have to wag my tongue.
Wag your tongue.
So now you're mixing up dog terminologies on top of all this.
Yeah, what could I say, man? You gotta lick. You gotta lick.
Yeah. Now you're going back to other dog.
Now
you're going back to other dog terminologies.
Hey, I'm just speaking the truth here. You got to use that tongue of yours.
Congratulations.
Do it right, man. Do it right.
I don't know how to do it right. There's many ways to use your tongue, and it's not one of them.
We're still waiting, and we're supposed to be talking to ex-49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, and Titans tight end Kevin Green. What's going on with Kevin?
Kevin, come on in. We're waiting for you.
Kevin, where are you, Kevin? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Speedy thought it was Kevin Green, the Hall of Famer, but Kevin has been gone for a while, my friend. You've lost your mind, man. And you're so good when it comes to analytics. How did you not know it wasn't the right Kevin Green?
Oh, maybe I work for the Raiders front office. They don't know what they're doing either.
Well, that's true too. And obviously, I think you would do. Honestly, you do a better job. And obviously, that organization needs somebody like you. So the analytic guy. But getting back to, we're waiting for Kevin, and we'll hopefully have Kevin on more sooner than later. Maybe he's trying to figure out how to work it. But the season comes down to week 18. And honestly, with the NFL and again, Miami and Buffalo, I think is such a big game. Because if Buffalo loses in Miami, they're out. after all the great comeback that they had over the last couple of weeks, if they lose in Miami, they're out of the playoffs because other teams could obviously, if Pittsburgh wins, they're out. Buffalo's out. I mean, there's quite a few teams that if they win, Indianapolis, if they win and Buffalo's out, they're out. It's crazy. So Buffalo needs this game more than Miami. But if Miami loses, they lose the division. It's crazy how this works out. Another game that stood out to me this past week is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Seahawks. That game really stuck out to me. And the Seahawks, who you picked to win that game,
I did. Yeah.
I had Pittsburgh, by the way. The Seahawks played a hard-nosed game, and Walker had a sensational game. They ran the ball very well against Pittsburgh, which Pittsburgh's been a pretty good run-stopping team this year. So I was surprised, and I think the Seahawks are completely knocked out, right? Are they out?
No, they're not completely knocked out, but it's going to be a lot harder because Green Bay has the tiebreaker.
What is the chances of them making the
It's probably in the 30s because they're the next team after Green Bay.
By the way, I still have a post-nasal drip, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm speaking out of my nose. I want to apologize to everybody, but this is life, baby. Now, this is life.
The tough thing for the Seahawks is
I can move my tongue better than you.
The NFC South winner or loser. If the Saints and Bucks both win too, I believe that one of them could still also sub in for the Seahawks as well, even if Seattle does win. Now, Seattle does play Arizona, which is not a great team, but they've been pesky in the second half of the season, like we've been talking about. They're 3-4. They've beaten some good teams, so that's not going to be an easy shoe-over game like you would have thought. The Packers play against the Bears, so on paper you would think it would be easier for the Seahawks, but the Bears. The Packers have still played well offensively at the end of the season.
Yeah, but also you look at the Packers, they can make the playoffs like you were just saying. The Rams already clinched. The 49ers clinched. So you have two teams in the same division in the NFC West that's already making the playoffs. And then even in the NFC East, you have the Cowboys and the Eagles that are both making the playoffs as well. So the Giants are done. The Commanders are done. The Vikings honestly are done too. It's really down to the Packers and the Saints and the Seahawks for the last spot. And honestly, who has the tiebreaker? The Saints?
The Packers have it right now. And the Buccaneers.
And who's the Packers playing this week?
They're playing the Bears. So they're
going to win.
They're at home, so they're going to be favored in that game. Now, what's interesting is the Buccaneers and the Saints are both still eligible for both the division.
Could you believe the Packers are going to sneak into the playoffs? They've had a terrible season. And Jordan Love has been up and down all season long. And some people think he's the quarterback of the future for the organization. Most people say that he's probably a backup quarterback in the long run. So I like Jordan Love, and I think he's looked good enough to give him at least another season to see what he has. But again, a lot of these Packer fans have been throwing him under the bus. They don't believe he's a consistent quarterback. But they said that about Jared Goff when he was over there with Sean McVay. Sean McVay was running the offense. He was calling all the plays at the line of scrimmage with 15 seconds. And now look at what Jared Goff has transitioned into with Dan Campbell and over there with the Lions when you give him more weapons. So, and he did. And honestly, and I'm going to say this for it to be true, Jared Goff, when he was over there, the quarterback of the Rams, they didn't have a lot of weapons. They really didn't.
No.
When you look at the Lions and the weapons that they have over there, St. Brown, Williams, and Reynolds, they have weapons there, and they have a star tight end I think is going to be one of the best, if not the best tight end in football in the next 2 or 3 years. He's fantastic, by the way, Laporta. They have weapons. Garrett and Gibbs is really starting to explode. By the way, everybody was talking about Bijan Robinson, and everybody was questioning why Gibbs was drafted as early as he was. Gibbs looked better in the second half than Bijan Robinson. So Gibbs is explosive, and they have weapons all over the field. I'm telling you right now, if the Lions sit pretty in the first round in the wild card game, they can go all the way to the Super Bowl. It just has to set up right for the Lions. They could be. I know they're going to beat the Cowboys if they play the Cowboys again in the playoffs. They're going to beat the Cowboys, and right now, the Eagles can't play them. They're better than the Eagles. The only team right now that's better than the Lions in the NFC is really the San Francisco 49ers. And honestly, if it came down to it, I might even put a couple of shekels on the Lions against the 49ers, even if it wasn't San Francisco. The Lions have nothing to lose. They're a young team, and they're up and coming, and Dan Campbell likes to go for it, baby. So, and we saw that last week, and we saw that on Saturday night that he likes to go for it on 4th and 2 and 4th and 1. So, And he lost that game for going for it, because if they went to overtime, they beat the Cowboys. I think they beat the Cowboys. They were starting to move the ball better with the last 3 minutes of the game. And I believe Jared Goff was starting to figure things out on the offensive side of the ball. So, and they started to throw the ball to Laporta, which they didn't do all game long until the second half. So I think that the Lions are as dangerous as any team right now in the playoffs. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to predict, if the Lions play San Francisco in the NFC title game, they beat San Francisco. They beat them.
Interesting.
I don't know if San Francisco is as good as everybody thinks that they are. I really don't. And here's the thing. Brock Purdy has to do it in the big game. He has to do it in a big game. And Christian McCaffrey, everybody knows everything, all the offense runs through Christian McCaffrey. If you stop Christian McCaffrey, you stop the San Francisco 49ers. If he can run the ball efficiently and even give you between 70 to 80 yards and gives you a touchdown in a game, you're probably going to lose. If you can keep Christian McCaffrey between 50 and 60 and keep him out of the end zone, you're probably going to win. And Christian McCaffrey, go look at San Francisco. Every time he had 80 or more yards and a touchdown, they win the game this year. Go look at their record. So to me, Christian McCaffrey is I think the all-in-all offensive side of that team. Everybody thinks Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Kittle and all the other weapons that they have. It is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is that offense.
Yeah, I also look at the 49ers. If you look at the way they're built, like, they have one significant weakness, I think, is maybe their right side of their offensive line. Now, a good coaching staff might be able to expose that kind of thing and make it harder for Purdy. Now, we've also seen that the Niners' injuries, when have been coming in really bad times, where especially if one player goes down, it seems like an offense gets broken. So you hope that kind of thing doesn't happen if you're the 49ers. And the Lions, it's interesting, if they end up playing in the playoffs, we've seen the Lions coaching definitely still be very strong. The Lions secondary on paper is not great, but what we saw in that Dallas game definitely is encouraging. If they let one guy beat them and they stop everybody else, they could still be tough in that game. Now, we'll see on the offensive side if they are able to do that, because the Lions offensive line in recent weeks has had their issues. Jared Goff has had their issues in recent weeks too. And the Niners obviously have a good track record against Jared Goff.
Did you see, and by the way, Jeff said that Tyreek's house just burned down. It burned down earlier today, and I know he left practice. And horrible. Did you see the flames?
I heard smoke. I heard that happened.
Thank God everybody got out safe.
Good. Yeah. I guess either nobody was in the house or
everybody got out safe.
Good.
But I think the house completely burnt down.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
The whole house.
All right. Yeah.
The whole ranch.
That's crazy in itself. And Jeff, I don't know why you're trying to make it a joke. Everything's wrong in Miami. The guy's house burned down. If your house burned down, you would not be making a joke about it.
I didn't see the other thing that he wrote, but.
Yeah. Everything is a mess in Miami. Okay, just because one house burned down, everything is a mess in Miami. I mean, the guy's house burned down.
I'm telling you right now, as good as the 49ers have looked this year, as good as they have looked, I still question if Brock Purdy can win the big game. And again, even though the Eagles have not looked good, they're still a scary team. If they get into the playoffs, we know what Reddick has done in the playoffs. We know what kind of havoc their defensive line can cause. And Jalen Hurts has not had the season that we thought he was going to have from last year. And they paid him a lot of money in the offseason. But I do believe Jalen Hurts hasn't been 100% all season long. And when he is on, he has looked completely different from the games that he hasn't looked good in. So he could change. He could flip-flop. I think that the Eagles have the talent. I think they have just as much talent as the 49ers and the Lions. But something tells me the Lions have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose out of all these NFC games and NFC teams. I could see the Lions making it to the Super Bowl and playing the Ravens and maybe surprising the world and knocking off the Ravens. Yes, the Lions winning their first Super Bowl.
The Ravens are the other team that gave them a bad blueprint, though, because the other thing the Lions have really struggled against is running quarterbacks. We've seen Justin Fields do it twice in both of those games, and Geno Smith with Seattle in week 2. So they're going to have to figure that out if they have to play the Eagles in the playoffs, if they're like a 2-3 matchup.
It's so open right now in the NFC. You don't know what to expect. Even the Rams, they're dangerous, too, because Matthew Stafford, they have 2 wide receivers. Cooper Kupp looks like, he's back to what he was before he tore his ACL again. So they have weapons. And again, San Francisco is not the same defense. I mean, not San Francisco. The Rams are not the same defense that they were when they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. But they're a completely different offensive team with Puka and obviously Kupp. So they can spread. And they have Williams, who has run the ball very, very well this year. A great find by them too. So they have the weapons. They're more of an offensive team than they were when they went to the Super Bowl. And everybody says, well, they were a pretty good offensive team. They were a good offensive team. They're more explosive this year offensively. It's the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of questions. They're secondary. But they have the front. They still have Aaron Donald. He is still dangerous, and they could still cause havoc on the defensive side of the ball as well.
And Jeff has returned.
All right. Jeff, what's up?
Why aren't you guys considering the Cowboys winning the NFC?
We're considering it. They're not going to be the favorites based on the 49ers still being ahead of them. And now you're seeing the coaching still crumbling in late in games.
Right, but they're going to be playing teams 17 on 11. They had the 6 officials in their pocket.
Yeah, that is also true. And if it comes down to an unfortunate circumstance like we saw against the Lions, that is definitely going to be a bad look for the league.
Right, that's what it is. The league wants Dallas, right? They've been favoring him the whole time. They know Dak sucks and can't get him over the finish line. They know he needs to win 3 in a row so Beeb's prophecy can come true. They're trying to help him.
I don't think any quarterback's going to win 3 Super Bowls in a row the way the league is currently constructed at this point. If the Chiefs aren't doing it,
that's not true. Dak Prescott's going to.
If the Chiefs aren't going to do it now with their awful wide receivers, nobody's going to do it.
Well, who does the Cowboys play in the first round?
If the last team.
If they fall out as the second pick, second
so
team,
they would
in
play
playoffs.
the NFC South winner, either the Bucs or the Saints.
Okay, because I'm looking at right now, and the Bucs and the Saints.
No, they won't. They won't end up.
I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't make any sense.
No, they won't end up. They won't end up playing the Bucs because the Bucs are going to win their division, so they'll get a first round home game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think he's saying if the scenario is Dallas falls out of the 2 and they don't win the division, they would.
No, Dallas sits at 2. Where do they?
Oh, that's right. Dallas isn't.
Oh, if Dallas sits at 2. They'll play either the Green Bay Packers or the Seahawks, or if one of those other South teams get in.
It's
right.
So interesting.
So if Dallas keeps the 2, they'll get a home game, and so are the Bucs. So who are the 2? Who are the wild card teams?
Right now, it's the Packers, but there's also Seattle still in the mix, and the Bucs or the Saints could also still make it too.
I think the Bucs are a dangerous team if they make the playoffs. They're a very dangerous team. Their defense is good. They can run the ball, and Baker Mayfield's played pretty well this year. And they have weapons on the outside with Evans, he wants that big contract.
Mm-hmm.
He's been better than Patrick Mahomes this year.
Yeah, statistically, they're actually not far off in some areas. I wouldn't go that far talent-wise, but yeah.
Yeah, stop it, Speedy. Look at the numbers.
We have Kevin Green waiting. Jeff, call back. Thank you. Jeff from Tampa again, ladies and gentlemen, as he calls Speedy a little dumb or stupid. Speedy, you like that?
I don't like it, but
how about we?
I'm sure it's not the first
how
time it
about
happens in
if we
anyone's
get a
life.
tennis racket and tie Jeff to a chair and beat him with a tennis racket? Would you be?
I'm not going to risk the criminal charges.
Criminal charges? We're not killing him.
I don't know.
Kevin will help us. Okay,
I'm not going to risk.
Kevin will help us tie him to a chair, and then Speedy, you could beat him. With
I am not getting involved in this.
You could use his head.
If Kevin wants to get involved in beating up our caller, that's a whole different thing.
It'd be fun. I mean, we tape him. We'll tape him to a chair. Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. I was a bad kid, and my cousin used to babysit me, my cousin Mark, and I used to con my brother and sister with cookies. And what I did was I waited till my cousin fall asleep in a chair. And what we did was we taped his legs and we taped his arms to the chair. And when he woke up, he realized he was taped to a chair, and then we pushed him on the side, and then we stayed up. We had ice cream and everything like that. We waited. My parents beat the hell out of me, by the way, when they came home. But we left him in that chair. We didn't put anything on his nose. We just put it on his mouth so he couldn't scream. But that's a true story, by the way. And my mom would tell you that, Speedy. So be careful. I might tie you to a chair. I'll do it to Jeff. And you could beat him with a tennis racket.
I am not beating him up with a tennis racket.
I didn't say you're going to beat him up. We just beat him with a tennis racket. Okay. We're not beating him up. We're not hurting him. Well, we are hurting him, but we're doing it in a nice way, a calm way. We use his head as a tennis ball. Okay.
You do you.
Oh, you do you. It's all about you, Speedy. No, it's not. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to former 49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, Titans, tight end, Kevin Green, here on the Sports Loudmouth.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next-door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Oh! Yeah, bring it back, baby. Bringing it back, Kevin. Dancing. Woo! Little shaft. Oh. There we go. There you go, Kevin. Shake that. Tennis racket, Speedy. Tennis racket. Do the tennis racket, Speedy.
That is not a real dance.
Forehand.
Kevin knows it's not a real dance.
672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. You can tune into all our local listings of all the shows throughout the country. All you have to do is check out our website by going to www.worldwidesportsradio.com. It's been a great show. Thank you to Matt O'Leary, Talking Jets show. He's fantastic. But this guy, and by the way, before we introduce him, Speedy reached out to me and he told me that we're going to have Kevin Green on the show. I said, the Hall of Famer. He tells me the Hall of Famer. I said,
my bad,
Kevin Green.
My bad.
Kevin Green passed away a couple of years ago. Unless we're going to a cemetery and interviewing over there in a cemetery, it's not the same Kevin Green. And he says, "Oh, wait a second, that's not the same Kevin Green."
You know what it was, Kevin? I found your account on I think related to another Steelers player, so I just in my head assumed it was. But
there's nothing wrong with that. That has happened to me numerous times. Thank God I actually did play in the NFL, so that people can actually have something to talk about.
Yeah. I told Speedy, wait a second. I know Kevin Green. He was part of the Jets coaching staff. He is gone. He had a heart attack.
Right.
So, and unless we are going to the cemetery and speaking to him when he's in his coffin, we're not interviewing Kevin Green.
See, Kevin, it might be a good thing that you weren't part of the Jets coaching staff.
That's probably true.
You know, there was a time where I was doing a radio show and they had no idea that I was, the tight end Kevin Green. The first question they asked me, so can you talk about your time, when you were part of NWO wrestling and things like that after you were retiring? And I was like, oh my God, this is the wrong KG. Wrong KG. I've never wrestled a part of my day of my life.
You know what it is, Kevin? This guy, he is an analytic genius. He really is. And he knows a lot about sports and all different former players. But for some reason, he didn't go that far into it with Kevin Green. And I'm like, Kevin Green played for the Carolina Panthers. That was when he was at the top of his game. That's when I remember him. He played for Pittsburgh. He played all over the place. But this isn't the same Kevin Green. I said, this isn't the same Kevin Green. And I remember Kevin Green with NWO over there with the WCW. This isn't the same Kevin Green. So anyways, we're happy to have him on. We're now talking to former 49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, Titans, tight end. Yes, tight end, not defensive lineman. Kevin Green.
Thank you.
Kevin, why don't we get into it? I mean, obviously, you played for the 49ers, and there's a lot of questions with the 49ers this year before we get into your career, that they are the best team right now in football. And one of the main reasons, Christian McCaffrey, the weapons that they have, Brock Purdy has come out of nowhere. What were your thoughts this season, in the second half of the season, where everybody was comparing this 49er team as one of the elite teams in all of the NFL?
I think from a defensive standpoint, you have to hand it to this team, right? Everybody knows the 49ers from just how well that defense was when they had guys like Patrick Willis, Deshaun Goldson, both the Smith brothers, right? And just how well their defense took them to the Super Bowl. And you look at this 49er team, and it's the exact same thing. Games are won up front. And the D-line with the 49ers is where they are winning and living and dying by every single Sunday. So I love it. I don't see that comparison too far off, to be honest with you.
So one of the other teams you played for was Chicago. They've made a lot of news recently too with the whole, do they keep Justin Fields or do they draft a quarterback at number 1? The fans are chanting for him. They want him again after Justin Fields was taking shots at them about 3 months ago. So what are your thoughts on that whole scenario?
You know, it's a situation where Chicago is a very tough city to play in, right? And they love their football. They love their teams, but football is king in the city of Chicago. I think Justin Fields, you know, I can honestly see him going somewhere else next year. It'll be tough for him to come back to Chicago and try and win them back over, especially taking shots at the coaching staff and the fans and things like that. I say fresh start. I personally see him heading to Atlanta with the Falcons.
Very interesting. Listen to Kevin. He's throwing curveballs. Bet on it, baby. Go to Vegas and bet on it. This is Kevin Green, not Kevin Green, you know, not the great Hall of Famer, the tight end, the great tight end that was in the NFL for 3 years, from 2014 to 2017. Another team that really stands out that you played for was the Titans, a team that some people thought was playoff bound this year. They have Mike Vrabel as their head coach. They still have Derrick Henry, and they have a great defense. They fell apart this year for whatever reason. They found their quarterback, I believe, in Levitz. I think he's a fantastic young player, but nevertheless, they trusted in Tannehill, and it didn't work out. The only thing that's good to watch when it comes to Tannehill is his wife. I'm just being honest. That's the only thing that looks good. But anyway,
he knows how to pick him.
Oh, so do I. But anyways, the Titans right now going into the offseason, there's a lot of questions if they're going to keep Mike Vrabel. Maybe they trade him away to the Patriots. Some people think that the Patriots are going to part ways with him. Do you see Mike Vrabel getting traded for a significant pick to go to the Patriots and be the next New England Patriots head coach?
I can see Vrabel willingly wanting to leave and to get away from that organization and, you know, to pretty much take up where Bill Belichick is left off with the Patriots. I think the biggest thing that Tennessee needs to think about is what are they going to do with Derrick, with Derrick Henry. I think that what we've seen this past offseason is the year of the running back and how running backs are wanting to be paid more, but at the same time, their lifespan is not really looking as if they are 30, 40, $50 million guys. They've built that whole organization around DH. And I think that what they're seeing is that they have to bring more weapons around him. Right. Or if not that, get rid of him and bring in some better assets around Levitz.
So you being a tight end, we've seen a lot of changes with the tight end position. It used to be a position like you had those Gronk types, those big bulkier guys, and now you're kind of seeing more of a speed tight end, hybrid wide receiver types. Do you think that's going to be a trendsetter for the rest of the league? And could you see a point where they surpass the wide receivers?
Of course. I was fortunate enough to play right when the tight end was starting to turn into that hybrid wide receiver. I played with Vernon Davis, Delaney Walker, and Martellus Bennett, and those were guys that, to be honest, you know, they weren't asked to block much. They were asked to flex out, go out there, catch a pass. I think I can more and more see guys, you know, turning into those giant wide receivers, tight ends, flexing out more. I think it's going to be a change in how offenses are schemed up.
As everybody knows, we are talking to former 49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, and Titans tight end Kevin Green. Played all the way from 2014 to 2017. Before we get into your career, what are you doing right now that you're retired?
I've been working in tech since I retired. Born and raised here in the Bay Area. Tech is the mothership of where a lot of people go to as far as a 9-to-5. I felt like it was my calling to not really go back into coaching or being a trainer and things like that. Just want to change what is perceptive of the former player when they're done, and that's working in tech. Aside from that, I do a lot of public speaking as well.
Oh, really? Where have you done your public speaking?
At various companies, startups, different universities. I'll be heading down to my alma mater, USC, this spring to go teach a class and just talk about transitioning out of the league and just what that looks like, some of the hell that a lot of players go through. I do a lot of that. It's tough, fellas.
Speaking of your background at USC, and that's what I want to get into, you played for USC, one of the more prestige colleges in college football. What was it like, obviously, being recruited by USC and then going to USC and then going into the NFL?
It was a dream to get recruited at USC. It was a dream to graduate from USC. As far as playing at USC, that shit was a nightmare. To be honest with you, it was a nightmare. And that's not a knock to the coaches or staff or anything like that. Well, I guess you can't say it was the coaches. When I was at USC, Coach Carroll recruited me, right? Everybody wanted to be recruited from Coach Carroll, win championships. They were coming right off of the Rose Bowl against Penn State. But then right after that, that's when sanctions hit. And that's when everything that happened when Reggie was there, we had got hit with. So we lost scholarships. We couldn't go to a bowl game. We had Lane Kiffin. It worked out for a little bit, but we all know how the Lane Kiffin era ended. And then from there, I had Ed Ogeron, who was my D-line coach during the Lane Kiffin era. And everybody loved Coach O. Coach O was told that he was not going to get the job heading into the bowl game. And that's when Clay Helton, who ended up taking over after Sarkisian, was our head coach for one game. So I tell people, man, my time at USC, I had 4 different head coaches while I was there in total. So, when it comes to playing at USC, the shit was not as fun as I thought it was going to be.
All right, I have to ask, now you mentioned Ed Orgeron, who was a great personality when he was at LSU, too.
Boy,
you have a good Ed Orgeron story that maybe a lot of people don't know about.
Oh, my God, yes. So, Coach Ed Orgeron, he was at USC during the heyday. And if it's 2 schools that he does not like, it is Florida and it is UCLA. He would never let anybody come into the D-line room or the team meeting room with any sort of blue on. We had a 4-star recruit, George Uko. He was from Chino, California. He was a freshman. And I think it might have been his 3rd week playing on the team. We had a big team meeting going into training camp. Coach O got up, ran from the other side of the room, ripped his shirt off as if it was Hulk Hogan in the 80s, and just left him there, shirt ripped, man titties out, everything, just throughout the whole practice, throughout the whole meeting. And it was something to where, that was Coach Kiffin and Coach O's first year there. So just to see how enthused he was and just how much hatred he had for UCLA and just the color blue. He sees blue like a bull sees red.
You speaking about bulls, I'm actually going to Madison Square Garden and watching, a bulls riding tournament over there, championship bulls riding and I'm actually going to do my credentials, interview some Cowboys. I've never done it before. It's something that I'm going to enjoy. I've done everything but doing that. So I'm going to have the opportunity to do it, Speedy, with your friend, Ashley Sarge.
The only thing is just make sure you don't invite Rex Ryan to do it. He loves to do crazy things.
What's so funny? Ashley has one leg, so could you imagine him trying to run from a ball?
What was the defensive the DN's name for the Vikings that was there for years? Big tall white guy. He played with me on the Bears. He was
Jared Allen.
Jared Allen. So Jared Allen was with me in Chicago.
Yes.
And I remember sitting next to him during training camp and stuff. And all he would talk about was bull riding. He was like, Kevin, I'm about to retire. This is damn near my last year doing this football shit. I'm moving out to my ranch and I'm just going to be tackling bulls for the rest of my life.
He's out of his mind. He was a great player. He's a Hall of Fame.
Tremendous player.
Yes.
Fantastic player. And he's funny too. Never got a chance to interview him. I would love to interview him because he's got that spark, that personality that definitely draws you. You could say every time he was speaking to the press, he wore a cowboy hat and he always stood out. It didn't matter who it was. It didn't matter who he was standing next to and what kind of star he was standing next to. He always stood out because he always had that like deep Texas accent. It was very funny. It really was.
Jared Allen and Justin Smith when I was with the Niners.
Yes.
We called him Cowboy. Those are the 2 countryest, hilarious dudes that I've ever played with. Just 2 walking trees.
Boy, Julius Peppers too, man.
That's a walking as well.
He's a walking tree, by the way. We are talking to former 49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, and Titans tight end Kevin Green. Kevin, you look at the league right now, and with the new rules and the way the league is transitioning, Roger Goodell is trying to find many different ways for you to hate the game. Okay. I mean, and then with the CTE situation, we've spoken to a lot of ex-players and how the NFL has handled the situation has been absolutely poor. What are your thoughts? Obviously, a former player and some of the stuff that the NFL is trying to transition the league into. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And why?
It's a tough situation because we all know football is the most physical game here on planet Earth. And, you cannot be successful in football without being extremely physical. The other side of that is Goodell and the refs trying to make the game safer. How do you make the game safer without making the game look, quote unquote, soft? Mm-hmm. I think that it's an interesting take because down the road, you see guys being affected, from CTE, but at the same time, there's also things that guys do to themselves, extracurricular activities that, the drugs and just, guys getting shot up with stuff so that they can continue to play a factor into some guys' demise down the road. So it's tough. I think since the movie Concussion came out with Will Smith, the level of urgency when it comes to CTE and bettering players has gone through the roof. Goodell's done I guess from what he understands, done a great job of trying to make it safer. But it's just tough. Sometimes you watch the game, you're like, why in the hell would they throw a flag on that? I think the Cowboys were playing, was it Miami the other day?
Lions.
Yes. And there was a late hit. Uh-huh. And it was like, what is the guy supposed to do? He's coming at the quarterback 100 miles an hour, and the quarterback lets it go right at the last minute. How's he supposed to stop his body? Uh-huh. And in situations like that, to where I just don't agree with how the game is changing. But thank God I'm done. It would be tough. And it's not like I was a guy that had a say so and what was going to be moving forward and what wasn't. But it's tough to play now. So I can you see them putting flag football into the Pro Bowl weekend, and there's parts of me where it's like that's some bullshit. But what are you going to do, right? You're trying to market the game of football to the mother out there, the single mother that wants their kid to be completely safe. How do I groom this child to continue to play football if I see guys getting their head knocked off every single day? Well, let's add flag football to the Pro Bowl. Okay, well, that looks a little bit safer.
Tom Brady already thinks it's flag football, and yet he's the one that played his whole career.
Oh, my God.
Exactly. I mean, NFL probably be two-hand touch next. Who knows?
Tom Brady will come out of retirement then.
Tom Brady will play at 60.
Right.
So the other thing I wanted to mention, because I know you're speaking for a lot of these players too. A lot of these players that don't get the same benefits that they do at the end of the season, either with player incentives. This is the week for week 18. A lot of these, they're trying to get incentives in their contract, and also with injuries too. Injury insurance that the NFL does not do very well. What are your thoughts to all that? The way these owners, these front offices love to manipulate teams. We just saw Russell Wilson get benched so they don't have to pay a bonus to him. Like, what are your thoughts to all that?
I think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit how much money is kept from these players putting their life on the line. I mean, in what world does a baseball player sign for $700 million and, he's not taking a shot to the head every day, right? I think that is bullshit how much these owners are not trying to pay these guys and not trying to look out for these guys when they're done. I think the term of we're a family, when you're on the Titans, right? It's a family, we're a family this, family that. But then once they cut you, they also cut your phone number as well. And so it's very tough to still find that family ideology when, you get cut after playing in the league for 2 months and you don't have a dime to your name. And that's not because you didn't save it all. That's because you didn't think that you were going to get cut and you weren't paid enough. I mean, a game check for a rookie at the time is only $17K. And there's guys that get cut after that. So you're only walking off with, say, 36 grand in your pocket after 2 games. And say you get cut and you never get picked back up. Well, then you're fucked. But at the same time, you signed for a $400,000 contract and you don't see a dime of it. So I've never been one to agree with how these contracts have been set up. And I think that it is tough, man, how much what these players go through, just hearing their conversations when they're done playing. A lot of them are broke, and that going broke aspect is not from them buying who, what, when, and whatever when they're playing. It's them not being paid enough for their services.
And it's so crazy when you look at the league and the way the league works, because you have Roger Goodell, who's making $55 million a year. He has life, I think life insurance when it comes to him and his family have insurance for the rest of their lives, even when he's done as the commissioner. So for life, and he has his own jet. He can fly wherever he wants. So he's set for life. And this guy's never put his body on the line at all, either as his kids, but everybody else, everybody else that we've interviewed, you name it, Taba Ali, everybody we've interviewed over the years, they've all put their bodies on the line. And then after they're done, like you said, we were family and we're no longer part of the family anymore. And that's the problem with the NFL. They build a family thought, and that's what they say. We're family. We're a part of we're a part of a brand for the rest of your lives. And then when the brand is done for you, you're pretty much thrown out, tossed to this side and say, bring on the next one, bring on the next young guy. And then after that, when they're done, they're looked at as just another piece of trash, as the other guys were, 10, 15 years before them. So it's horrible.
I always laugh at, you guys watch the draft, right? When a player walks across the stage and they see Goodell and he gives him that soul handshake and locks
I knock his ass out, man. I knock his head. Elbow.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Knee to the chest, baby.
And it looks like Goodell has known this guy for like his whole career. And it's just interesting to see just that come togetherness that they have when the kid gets drafted, and then 5 years later, say something happens. It's like, hey man, go fuck yourself. So it's rough to see. But
Kevin, come on, Kevin, wouldn't you want to see somebody just when their name gets called up? You see Roger Goodell, he's ready to hug him, and he just does a Superman punch to the face, knocks him out. You see him laying there, and you'll be like,
I don't condone anybody.
CTE, you little bastard, CTE.
I don't condone it.
He'll never play in the NFL again.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be a wrap.
Suspended indefinitely for rallying against the NFL.
In Germany or something like that.
Come on, you wouldn't. I would pay for any. I'd say, listen, whoever you are, you're a first round draft pick, second round draft pick. I'm a rich guy. I'm going to give you $50 million for knocking out Roger Goodell on that stage.
You might get a fan to do that, man, but I don't know those players.
Well, let me tell you something, Kevin. I'm not a big fan of his, okay? Because I was over there in Miami a couple of years ago for the Super Bowl, and I was invited to do Radio Row.
Yeah.
I go into the building, and I'm looking for my badge. I go up to the lady, and she says, I give her my name, blah, 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 my network. And she says, I don't see your name. And I said, what do you mean you don't see my name? And I said, I got the letter. I showed her the letter. She says, well, your name's not here. So I go up to the door and I said, could I speak to somebody? Mm-hmm. So they bring one of the VPs of public relations down, and I'm standing there, and I had a conversation with her, and she tells me, sir, there wasn't enough room. You invited me here. I flew over here. I had to rent a car. I bring all my equipment over here, and you're telling me there's not a spot for me. Well, sorry, sir, blah, 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 blah. It's like, how about I go and ask every single one of your employees how you treat every single one of them and how much you're paying them, and write a big story about you guys. Oh, you could do whatever you want. It's up to you what you want to do. I was like, oh, good, I'll do that. So I wrote a big story, and I asked everybody. And some of the people didn't want to even answer any of the questions because they were afraid they were going to lose their job, or it was going to get out to the NFL. The problem with the NFL is it's not even Roger Goodell. It's the owners. It's all the, if you say something they don't like, or you come out, with conflict in what you say, they're going to throw you away like they do to all their other players. And I think it's despicable. I think it's disgraceful. And that somebody speaks up for the players, speaks up for the fans. It doesn't, they don't like it. They don't want to hear it. And that's shame on them, because you want to know something in the long run. It's not going to stop me from coming out and saying coming out with my feelings and saying what I really feel about the
exactly
as a whole.
Exactly. Nor should it. I think that a lot of players, when they're done, they should be able to speak freely about their experience in the NFL. I mean, the NFL doesn't stand for National Football League. It stands for not for long. And I think that guys should be able to talk about that. And, like I said, I play with guys that have played 8 years, 18 years. And I play with guys that played 8 months, or guys that have played one training camp, and that's it. So it's more so an experience than it is a career. And I think that, when you play for a team and you do everything that they ask you to do, and sometimes you barely get a chance to even meet the fucking owner. right? But at the same time, they're cutting the check, and you are family. You get invited to the Christmas party if you make it that long in the season. But at the same time, once you're done, and you are just another replaceable item. To be honest with you, man.
Yes, I want to go back to USC for
Yes.
this season. For one thing, obviously, big news. They're going to the Big Ten along with many other teams. So that's one. And what are your thoughts on that? And also Caleb Williams. Is there as much questions of his maturity, do you think, as there should be at the NFL draft?
So I'll start with Caleb. He could play some goddamn football, man. He can play some football. I think as far as maturity going into the draft, it's a different age. It's a different age. A lot of these guys that are being drafted, they're not the Andrew Luck, right? From a mature standpoint, right? They're not the Carson Palmer, right? They're not the grown ass man walking into the combine that is impressing everybody with their looks, how they talk. I think the players nowadays, they are more of an individual, right? And I love it because they're showing a little bit more style, and they're kind of changing the game a little bit. Now, my biggest thing is if you're going to be one of the front runners to change the game, change the narrative, then make sure your game can back it up. I think Caleb's game will definitely back it up. I love that he transferred to USC. I wish he would have started there. Maybe we would have won a couple more rings or something like that. But I'm excited to see what he does next year. Now, from what I understand, he has announced that he's leaving yet. Has he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I can't wait to see what the kid does. I'm hoping he goes first. I'm hoping he's in the lottery, top 10, but we'll see. As far as USC going to the Big Ten, I cannot wait. I think that helps us, USC, from the standpoint of recruiting. I think that helps us as far as being seen more on a national level. Most of our games here on the West Coast, man, they're on Fox Sports. And, if you're in Nevada or Arizona or California, Oregon, Seattle, that's about the only time you can watch us. If you're in New York, Texas, it's not happening at all. So I think that'll help us bring guys from the southern states, Midwest states to come play in LA. I mean, who the hell wouldn't want to be in 70-degree weather in the middle of October, right? And at the same time with this NIL deal, there's way more money to be made at the University of USC, at the University of Southern California than there is Wisconsin.
It's crazy.
I'm excited, man. I have my own thoughts about the NIL. I wish that I could have got a part of that when I was playing at USC. I think that at the same time, it allows guys to be a little bit more spoiled and not work as hard for what they want, and that is to get drafted. And it's like, what do you say? What do you say, right? I mean, I think players should be getting paid in college, but at the same time, for a guy to forfeit going to the NFL because he's making more bread in the league in college, it's like shit. I can't really knock him for that, and that was the biggest thing with Caleb. He's like, I'm making millions as a quarterback for USC. Why would I want to jeopardize my draft stock by declaring for the NFL? But I think he made the right decision.
As everybody knows, we are talking to former 49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, and Titans tight end Kevin Green. You were speaking about USC, and Lincoln Riley's been connected to Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. If Mike McCarthy can't get this team out of the wild card game or out of the first round of the playoffs, I mean, Mike McCarthy could be looking for a new job. And a coach that has been really highly connected to Jerry Jones is Lincoln Riley. Could you see Lincoln Riley coming to the NFL and being successful as an NFL head coach, as a big offensive mind that we've seen in college football?
I think if he brings the right, he has to bring the right DC. He has to bring the right defensive coordinator. Lincoln Riley can dial up any offensive scheme, play anything, and that shit will work. We've seen it work year after year at USC, but he has to bring the right defensive mindset, guys. I can definitely see the Cowboys trying their best to bring him in. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to be the head coach of USC, and then went on to be the head coach for the Cardinals. So I can see him leaving. The only reason that I think he would not is to get a little bit of the action in the new conference and just to see what that looks like as far as recruiting, what that looks like as far as success, and just being able to be the head coach for USC in this new conference to bring a title there. I can see him sticking it out for one more year just because of that, because shit like that goes down in history.
One of our fans, who was a Bears fan, has a question. How miserable was the Bears ownership and front office when you played for them? And in this draft, who trades the number one pick to Caleb Williams? Who do you think?
Who trades the number 1 pick for Caleb Williams? Oh man.
Trades for the number 1 pick.
Yeah, trades for the number 1 pick. John Fox was the head coach when I was in Chicago.
Love John Fox.
Yeah, I was not there long enough to meet the family that owns it.
Palace, yeah.
Yes, I wasn't there long enough. But as far as Caleb is concerned, who would have the number 1 draft pick this year?
The Bears.
Right now, the Bears. That's why he's asking. The Carolina pick.
Yeah, I see the Bears bringing him in. I can see
Really?
that.
You think they give up on Justin Fields?
I think they do. I mean, it's very tough to come back when you, as a player, right? Especially as the starting quarterback, as the guy, you never throw your teammates, your players, or the fans under the bus because those are the people that are supporting you day in and day out. And he really messed up when he did that. And like I said earlier, man, and like this guy that just wrote in, he's a Chicago fan, right? I mean, the Bears. So he knows how much that shit hurt when you have your guy, your starting quarterback, talk shit about you like that. So I see the Bears getting rid of him, and I see them replacing him with Caleb.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. One more question for me. I know you're a busy guy, and obviously we'd love to get you on again. You're great, by the way. You're a great speaker. You have a great personality, and you know about your team. You know about your teams, and you know about football. There's no question about that. When you look at the league as a whole, and obviously going into the playoffs with this rule that you get a chance to score. If you score, you get a chance to take the ball down. It's the Josh Allen rule.
Yes.
Do you like that? And do you think that the NFL should bring that in throughout the season instead of just the playoffs?
They should make it throughout the season. I think that to add a new rule and just make it in the playoffs when guys' livelihood and their full-time careers are on the line like that. I mean, your career's on the line every Sunday, but it's win or go home in the playoffs. And for them to implement this new rule, I don't agree with it at all. At all. It's especially, something that they made up and kind of developed. And say if a game comes down to that, and then a team, say the fucking Cowboys or something, or the Niners lose to something like that. It's like, what the fuck? Instead of letting us go out here and letting our defense do their thing and the offense do their thing, we're throwing out this Josh Allen rule. And because of that, the whole season's over. So I don't agree with it. We had a phrase when I was at USC, and it was "don't make shit up." And that is exactly what I feel the NFL is doing with this rule. They are making shit up. Don't do that.
All right, last question for me quickly. What would be your Super Bowl pick right now, and who do you got national championship, Washington or Michigan?
National championship. Man, I played for Harbaugh, and I love Washington being in the Pac-10 and Pac-12 when I was there.
Yes.
Man.
Go ahead, say it. Say it. Say it.
I see Harbaugh getting this done, man.
I don't. I think everything that I saw, what Penix did, a great team. I think Penix. I think he's Lamar Jackson Jr. the second.
He's good.
Fantastic.
But that defense that Michigan has, man, they know how to lay some wood, man. They do. So, but at the same time, Harbaugh's my guy. I have a personal relationship with the dude. I don't know a fucking soul over there in Washington. So, gotta go with my guy Harbaugh, man. He gave me a shot in the NFL, so I will forever be grateful for that guy. I just hated the fact that how high he wore his pants during practice. Jesus Christ. His Levi's were so high. They damn near were touching the bottom of his chin, man. It was so funny. I love that dude. But Coach, you got to loosen the pants up a little bit, big guy.
Who do you have going to the Super Bowl?
Going to the Super Bowl? If I'm not going to go with my obvious pick of the Niners, which I think, they will see some trouble down the line. I think it's Purdy's going to get tested. And I think ownership is going to really realize if this is going to be our guy moving forward. Defense, they'll be fine. But Purdy's going to get his ass tested, man. As far as the Super Bowl is concerned, I like Jackson. I like Baltimore. I like Baltimore getting that done. I would love to see Baltimore get that done.
I like Lamar Jackson. I don't think anybody respects him enough of what he's done. And by the way, I've been saying this over and over and over again. There was a GM / president that gave him one more gift. Baltimore, he gave him one more gift. And Speedy, you know who I'm talking about. Ozzie Newsome, who came out and before he retired, he gave them Lamar Jackson. And ever since he's given them Lamar Jackson, they've given him a chance to win every single year. Lamar needs to get over the hump. He needs to play in a championship. I think he will get it done this year. He'll get into the championship.
Right.
We'll see what happens. But I like the Lions too. They're a scary
team.
They're a scary team, man.
Yeah, Dan Campbell, come on, man. I mean, if push comes to shove, that motherfucker will put on some helmets and a shoulder pad himself and run out there if he could.
He wanted to put a regular Lion on the sideline.
Exactly.
That guy's out of his mind. I love Dan Campbell. I never realized how funny he is until I watched Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
He actually works out with the guys. He does the same workouts as they do.
He's a huge human being, man. I had a tryout for the Dolphins, and he was the tight end coach at the time. And my God, man, just a big, intimidating, scary dude. Remind me of Kevin Nash. Okay, just a big dude. But to get back to your question, I think Lamar Jackson gets it done. I love the fact that he took a chance on him. I'm all about guys taking a chance on themselves and betting on themselves. He did that hiring his mom to do his contract. He did that by playing last year without guaranteed money. And the way that he responded to all of that shit, man, by playing out as well as he is right now. I love that. Plus, Nelson Aguilar and T. Jackson, who is the quarterback coach, who's at USC with me. And Nelson is a Trojan. And Josh Johnson as well, Oakland, California native, has been on every fucking team in the world. And, was there with me when I was with the Niners. And he was the guy that really helped me out. So that's like a big brother to me. That's Marshawn Lynch's little cousin. So I'm cheering for them boys out there in Baltimore, man. I think it would do a lot of good to that city just to see some wins. But we'll see what Purdy can do here in the playoffs. But that defense, that defense in San Fran is pretty goddamn good.
Dan Campbell could have gotten that the Dolphins job the year after. All the players loved him, but then they hired the great Adam Gase.
I know. Can you guys imagine what will happen if Detroit were to make it to the Super Bowl and win it? I honestly think hell would freeze over.
I think it would. Watching the Jets play enough garbage bad. They should play basketball, honestly, the way they play football. But nevertheless, I would love to see the Lions win. I really would. A team that just had bad luck. And by the way, I feel bad for Barry Sanders for all the years that he was dominating, never had a good team around him. Could you imagine Barry Sanders on this team? Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. And I know this might be sacrilegious for me to say this, but there is a small part of me, man, that would love to see, and hear me out when I say this, all right? That would love to see the Cowboys have some success. I'd never cheer for the Cowboys because I cannot stand Jerry Jones, but I always say to myself, man, if when he gives up ownership, I would love to see the Cowboys have some success, man. The fans are something else, but it's like, goddamn, like it's the Cowboys, right? But maybe not this year.
How about those Cowboys, as Jimmy Johnson said on Saturday night, by the way. And congratulations to Jimmy. I years and years ago, I met Jimmy Johnson at an event. Jimmy Johnson is a nice guy, and shame on Jerry Jones keeping him out of the Cowboys Hall of Fame. This is a guy that has been all about the Cowboys, and who knows, the Cowboys probably win 5 Super Bowls if he stays there with the Cowboys. So
I think so.
Shame on Jerry Jones for what he did. Jerry Jones, that just shows you who Jerry Jones is,
right, exactly.
And what he's all about. But hey, listen, Jerry Jones, just say whatever you want. The guy's a multi-billionaire, and he built that organization into a really phenomenon. They're unbelievable.
He honestly has. He has. I just think he has too much power over there, and that's why I think that has been their ultimate demise.
Let's hire you, Kevin. Yeah. Let's hire you. Let's make you the GM.
Exactly.
Let's transition that team, man. Let's go. You be the GM. I'll be the VP. And we build this team into a championship team. We fire Mike McCarthy. We make Dak Prescott the richest person in the world, and we're ready to go. Dak for president, baby.
Why not?
I like Dak. I don't care what anybody says.
And then his friend the Beeve will sell his fanship and become a fan of a different team.
Oh, please. Right. It's so funny, Kevin. This guy, and I love him. He's a great kid. He's a big Cowboy fan. He thinks that if he became the GM of the team and he ran this organization, he can make this team a Super Bowl contender. But when he's the same guy that told me, that the fact that CeeDee Lamb fell to them, that CeeDee Lamb is going to fail, he's going to stink in the league. And I'm like, are we talking about the same CeeDee Lamb that played for Oklahoma? Do you even know what you're talking about? I mean, you and look at him. He's a top 3 wide receiver in the league. He's been unbelievable. I could be wrong. I said, you're also the same person that said Ezekiel Elliott could play behind the same line as Barry Sanders and run the same way as Barry Sanders. What are you on, drugs?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's out of his mind, man.
At the time, he wanted Xavier McKinney. He's a good player, but he's nowhere near CeeDee Lamb.
He's not really close.
It's believing that you know how this shit works, man, is an epidemic. Everybody thinks they could be a GM, a head coach, or a player until it's actually time to go out there, and it's like, all right, this shit's a lot harder than I thought. But it seems like you guys definitely know what the hell you're talking about. And I appreciate
thank you, Kevin. We think you know what you're talking about, and you have a great personality. You got a pizzazz to you. I mean, like, seriously, listen. Let's go reach out to Jerry Jones and say, listen, Jerry, you're a nice old man. You're in your 80s. You look sexy because your wife is, or your new wife is 40 years old.
Whatever it is.
I don't want to, if you want to hang out with somebody, I'll hook you up with Speedy.
No thanks. I'm not doing anything affiliated to the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, hook him up with your dog because your dog likes, licking in certain areas.
That is
That's too much.
And then we'll hire Kevin as the GM. I'll be the VP, or I'll be his assistant, and we'll get it done.
Kevin, if you feel the need to pull off a Bill Belichick and retire from the team, or resign from the team after 45 minutes of seeing that, I don't blame you.
I'll rehire Jimmy Johnson out of retirement.
Right. We'll bring him back.
After 30 years, Jimmy Johnson.
Why not? Comes out with the Stone Cold music and everything.
Oh yeah. Yes. Jimmy, I'll tell you this, Jimmy Johnson. There's something about him. He's like he's flashy, he slicks his hair back. He looks like that real Italian mafia guy, and he's got a smirk, and he's got those dimples. He's got Santa Claus's dimples, man.
I'll tell you what, the man has a hell of a restaurant down the Florida Keys, man.
I got to check that out.
Oh, it's incredible. Love it.
Really? Interesting. Got to check it out, Kevin. But Kevin, you're fantastic. We would love to get you on the show again. You really are. And keep up the good work, and we'll be in touch, my friend.
Fellas, I appreciate you guys, man. Start this new year off great. Get it done.
We're trying, man. We're trying. I mean, tell Jerry Jones to hire us.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell him, give you a couple mil. You give me 500,000. I can live on that.
That's all we need. What
do you need, man? Sharing is caring, Jerry. You're a multi-billionaire. I mean, share something. Give me some shekels, baby. Give me some shekels. Oh man, I need that. Anyways, Kevin, you're the man. You're the man. Kevin Green, ladies and gentlemen. He is fantastic. Great personality. Speedy, great get, man. Great get. I mean, seriously.
Oh, yeah. He was great.
Could I smack you around a couple times?
I don't advocate for it.
What do you think, Kevin? You think Kevin could smack you around a couple times?
Of course he could. That doesn't mean I would advocate for it.
We'll give you a tail. I think you look good with a tail. What do you think?
I'm sure you do.
Half dog, half human. Oh, God. I mean.
Oh, so I'm Barf from Spaceballs?
Oh, that's you kind of look like Barf with that beard of yours.
No, I'm not there yet.
I mean,
he's got hair all over his body.
Listen, you need to cut that hair, man. I mean,
but he has it all over his body. There's a difference.
So you have hair in your undercarriage.
Congratulations.
Right?
That is
do you not?
Small sample size.
I don't know about small. I mean, do you see
small sample?
Do you see that area?
Small.
Is it open for for people to see?
No.
How about a woman
no,
to see?
no,
How about a
no,
woman to see?
No,
that's
no,
not a people.
No,
it's one person.
No.
I mean, sincerely, I think that it would be interesting to look at, man.
I'm sure you do.
I mean, seriously, I don't know what it looks like over there.
Good for you. Keep being curious because you're never going to know.
I am curious, George.
Speaking of animals that have a lot of hair, Carl has some comments about the Lions.
Oh.
If Dan Cable suits up, he needs to make sure he reports as eligible. Bill Cowher is defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. Errol, if you were an NFL owner, you already would make the Speedy the mascot, the fun inside the mascot outfit.
I think it would be good. I mean, I would dress you up as your dog, since you have this infatuation with your dog.
Okay, most people that own dogs have a loving relationship with their dogs. Yes.
So you let him lick your ass.
I didn't let him.
But you just said you had a loving relationship with him.
All right, everyone listening, Errol is twisting stories
I
again.
did not twist it. You told me that you allowed him to do that.
I did not allow him to do it.
What
I was blindsided.
But how did it feel? How did it feel?
Startling.
But startling's not the word. I mean, how did it feel? Was it wet? Was it dry? Was it what was it like? I mean, when a cat licks you, it's like a rough. It's like leather. You know what I mean? It's like a
no, I've
weird...
never been licked by a cat, so I don't know.
So what is it like being licked by a dog in your ass?
It was a little wet and it was uncomfortable.
A little wet or very wet?
A little.
A little wet. Okay. I'm just answering.
Luckily, I was reactionary enough to stop it.
Did
Before
you jump? Did you jump?
Yes.
How did you jump? Did you jump up high?
I don't know. I was blindsided.
I think I
don't think I'm not going to analyze my aerodynamics when I'm blindsided.
I mean, maybe you probably would have liked it. I mean,
no, I didn't like it.
I mean, it never happened.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it, so
no.
it wasn't
no,
fair. It wasn't fun.
No.
It wasn't part of.
No.
Part of.
No.
No. Enjoying it.
No.
Okay. All right. I'm just asking. You look like the type of person.
Carl says, Errol, owner of an expansion team, the Long Island Greyhounds.
I like that. I like the Long Island Greyhounds. I mean, what kind of dog is your dog?
It's a black lab mix. It's like a mix of like
the
three
Long
other
Island
breeds.
Labs. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll have a picture of Speedy's dog licking.
No,
is
there will be no pictures.
In a cartoon character.
There will be no pictures.
Well, I figured. I mean, you are hanging off your underwear in our logo.
I know. That was not my choice.
Oh, it looks good, man. It looks
Congratulations.
Really, I think you look great.
Good for you.
I personally think you're
good for you.
Fantastic personality, man. You are fantastic.
No, Carl, I was not blindfolded.
Oh, he was blindsided and blindfolded. Maybe he had his underwear over his head.
No, I didn't.
I mean,
no, I didn't.
Why would you be walking naked in your room if you
I didn't walk in naked. I went in and then I changed.
You changed, and how did the dog get in there?
Because he knows how to open that door, because it's my brother Aiden's room.
He doesn't have thumbs. How does he open the door?
He uses his head and barrels through.
So he used his head and barreled through you.
No, luckily that wasn't that vicious, but
I mean, well, it wasn't vicious. It felt good, right?
No, it didn't.
I'm just asking you. I mean, you look like
you asked the same question a minute ago and already forgot.
But I do. I forget things.
Yes.
I have like amnesia.
Yep, you do.
But it's good. It's good. By the way, Carl says dog knew what he wanted. Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Good taste.
I'm not
Good
disputing that, Carl.
Does he like to lick anybody else's ass?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's gone for my brothers too.
Oh,
trying to go for
sharing is caring. Huh?
Go for some.
It's a family reunion.
Yes. No, it's not a reunion. It's him having those desires.
Oh, so he likes licking ass.
Apparently.
Oh, so you got a dog that likes to lick ass.
Okay, cool.
That's awesome. That's
all right. You take such great pride in it for whatever reason.
I'm just telling you. That's interesting.
None of us do that besides you.
I didn't lick your ass.
Not you.
Yeah.
None of you take. You're the only one who takes great pride in my dog trying to be.
I mean, come on, man. You're sitting here and you're telling me that your dog goes after not only you but your brother's and mother's ass.
Okay, yeah. She tries to sexually harass us at random times.
Wow. I mean, so your dog has this urge. I mean,
yeah, he does.
Did somebody teach him?
No.
All right. I mean, you've had him since he was a baby.
No, it's called animal instincts.
Oh, so he likes to lick ass because his animal instinct tells him to lick ass. Is it the smell or
no?
I mean, do you
animal instincts?
Do you
animal
all
instincts
smell the same way?
No, an animal instinct.
Well, that is an animal instinct. I mean, if you all smell the same, they usually go after each other.
Okay,
I'm just saying. Anyways, thank you. I love you, Speedy. Smile, man. Put a smile on your face.
I'll try.
Oh, there you go. There's a nice smile. Let's jump up in the air and start all ourselves.
Let's
not. Thank you to the host of the Just Jets podcast and Talking Jets show, Matt O'Leary, for joining us. And thank you to former 49ers, Bengals, Panthers, Bears, Titans tight end. No, he's not Kevin Green from the defensive side of the ball. He is the tight end, Kevin Green. Thank you to Kevin Green for joining us. Thank you to all the fans out there that listen to us, tune in, download our show throughout the social media markets. Thank you to all the fans that have tuned in throughout the years. And obviously a new year with me and Speedy Petey, another crazy year, as we'll have some crazy guests And Speedy Petey will invite his dog into
I
the
won't.
studio one way or another.
No, I will not.
And maybe our
No,
friend
I will
Scoops
not.
will share his.
No, I will not invite my dog in here.
Why not?
My dog is not going to be doing well in these very tight
I'm going to make
spaces
sure.
anyway.
I'm going to make sure that I'm sitting down because I don't want him to lick my ass. Okay, just so you know.
Yeah, that's a smart idea.
Yeah, that's smart. I listen. I got some brains sometimes. Anyways, thank you to all the fans. Who do we have on tomorrow?
All right, so tomorrow, 8:30, returning to the show. He was on twice when he was working in Charlotte. Now he's actually in Houston. Will Kunkel, sports reporter.
I like Will.
Yep, he's now working in Houston, so he'll
The
have
Kunkinator.
He knows both ends of the Bryce Young, CJ Stroud
remember that, yeah.
saga now, especially now with Frank Reich getting fired. And Texans could be a playoff team. Who knows? We'll see. But he'll be on at 8:30, and then 9 o'clock for the first time on the show. He's a relief pitcher for the Washington Nationals. He pitched this year in 18 games. His name is Amos Willingham.
Oh, I remember Amos. Yeah, very nice. Speedy, are you excited?
I am.
Oh, look at that. I know you're getting ready for the interview and you're excited. You're jumping for joy, clapping your hands and getting ready for it. We good?
I'm not clearly doing that, as otherwise you would be hearing my hands clap.
I don't want to hold your hands. That's not what
I'm not saying you do.
Okay, I'm just saying. I don't need to hold your hands. You can clap your hands. Could you clap? Thank you.
There you go.
The clapper? Does the light go on and off?
No, we have some of them at New Year's, but I didn't bring any.
Oh, you got
we
the
have
clapper.
clappers. Yeah, you shake them. They're like
No, I'm not
hands.
talking about that. You do the clapper and the lights go on and off. You ever seen
No,
that?
yeah, it's motion sensor. I know that, but I do you have anything like that? I don't think.
Remember the Chia Pet? Chia.
Vaguely, yeah.
Remember that? I love that commercial. It's great. You kind of look like a Chia Pet.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Anyways, thank you to all the fans. We will be back tomorrow, as always, 7 p.m. Good night.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around